raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife, twin flame, my other half, the completion of me, Mrs. Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
And we decided last minute to hop on and do a show. And we want to thank everybody who has joined us this evening and who is here bringing your energy to the table. I really and firmly believe that this is a very special group of people that have been notified tonight, that have joined us tonight to do something that I think is going to be very remarkable if we can create the energy field and the energy force to make this happen. I want to give you a little bit of backstory first. Several years ago, there was Hurricane Sandy. And we had our dear friend, shaman, seer, healer, William Whitecrow on the broadcast with us. He recently passed away last March. And he did a meditation with us. And the focus of the meditation was to move Sandy over and keep it from creating damage and problems. Now, people are very, very concerned about Hurricane Florence, and it looks like this one is just plowing right into the east coast of the United States. So I want to do an experiment tonight. I'm not promising anything. I'm going to put my intention out there. I'm going to go down into that raw consciousness element of myself. I am going to find that place of gnosis that understands that this is an artificial simulation, that one moment of knowing. And I'm going to reach down into that moment, and I want each and every one of you to reach down into that moment as well as we do this meditation. Now, there's one of two things that's going to happen. Either A, we're going to weaken this thing and move this thing out of the way, or B, this thing is going to continue on its path. If it continues on its path, then obviously it was meant to be, and there's nothing we can do about it. If we are able to steer this thing, or at least weaken this thing, then I think that will go to show that raw consciousness really does have the power in this matrix. What do you think, Mrs. Gio?
I think anything's possible, especially since this is an artificial reality. So our thoughts, our emotions, our energies absolutely can affect multiple things across the board, and not just with ourselves, but with the environment around us. Florence, one of the strongest storms on the eastern seaboard in decades, is a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 115 miles per hour. It's predicted to deliver tropical storm force winds by noon Thursday to North Carolina's coast. So that's noon tomorrow. And then hurricane force winds and dangerous storm surges by late Thursday or early Friday. Tornadoes are also possible Thursday in eastern northern North Carolina. So we're looking at North and South Carolina really being on the path to get hit with a lot of severe weather in the next 2 days. But as Chris said, we can do what we did a few years ago and shift this to where nobody dies. There's no loss of life, especially, and there's not as much damage being done. So hopefully we can get this show on the road.
If it's meant to be.
If it's meant to be,
then
right.
We'll make it happen. Mm-hmm. But if it's meant for it to hit, then it's going to hit. And, you know, there was a different dynamic before. Before, there wasn't a reset event taking place. Now there is a reset event taking place, and it's going to be happening over the next several years. This may be part of the shift. Now, we definitely don't want to work against that. But I think back to the tablets, the Sumerian tablets, the lost book of Enki. And even though I'm starting to realize that the Sumerian tablets are more metaphoric and allegorical, And as I said before, they were one of the big things that helped me break those religious chains when I realized that the Bible was actually plagiarized from these tablets and several other documents that are allegedly even more ancient than the Bible. So they do have a place, but I think back to the Lost Book of Enki, and Nibiru was coming back. And in this story, the council met, and they were deciding the fate of planet Earth. If they were going to tell the people, well, the fate of the people, I should say, they were deciding on whether to tell the people that there's a huge event about to happen and that everything's going to be flooded, or just leave them to their own destiny. And what the council decided was that they had already interfered and broken the law of the creator of all is how they called it, broken one of its fundamental laws by, first of all, going to another planet that was so unevolved and so early in its evolution. So that was already one, but it was out of a necessity because their planet needed the gold that was there. Otherwise, their planet would suffer. They broke another law of the creator of all by genetically, I don't know why I couldn't think of the word genetically modifying and altering the hominoid species that was here on Earth, which then created us, according to the tablets, not according to my belief or my gnosis. So the council decided that they were not going to interfere, and they were going to just let Nibiru pass and let the slate be wiped clean. But Enki and Ninhursag were the two that created man. First, Enki tried to create man within clay pots, and they came out a little wilder than they anticipated. They were very strong, but they couldn't follow orders to work in the mines to pull out the gold. So they needed to create something different. And Enki was in his laboratory, and he was kind of banging his head against the wall, asking himself, how can we make these things a little bit more like us and less like animals? And he got the bright idea. Let's use Ninhursag's womb to do this. And of course, Ninhursag was like, hey, are you insane? This is like Nazi type stuff that you're talking about here. This is like Nazi mad scientist stuff. Are you crazy? I'm not going to put one of these things in my womb. Imagine, if your husband came to you and said, hey, I want to create another species. And so I want to take this dog and I want you to carry its DNA in your womb. But she did anyways. And that created Adape and Titi. And Adape and Titi, they had something different inside of them than Adamu and the other one. I don't remember what the other
Titi.
one. No,
Adamu.
And the Eves. I don't remember exactly what they called them. So Enki noticed them, that they had a divine spark within them. And so he was in the garden. He took them off to the side. He was watching them play. He was watching them. And Enlil comes in and says, "Why the hell aren't these in the Abzu, working in the gold mine?" The Abzu was the gold mine, and Enki said, "Look, these are something different. They have the divine spark within them." And he started teaching them astrology. He started teaching them all of these things. So after the meeting with this council, Ninhursag went to Enki, and of course, the mother goddess, symbolic of the divine feminine aspect, symbolic of the compassion and love and unconditional love that a mother has for a child. She said, I don't care what the council said. We created these things. They are our life. They are life. You have to save life, save life, save life. It was repeated 3 times. And Enki listened to the divine feminine, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to listen to the divine feminine. And he went to Zuizudra, who was his lab assistant, and he gave him all these DNA samples. And then he went down to Noah, and he talked through a reed wall, and he told Noah, you need to build a huge ship, I think, more likely than an ark. And Zuizudra is going to come, and he's going to give you these DNA samples, and then afterwards we can recreate life. And so after that, the flood happened, and then Enki and Enlil were flying in a spaceship, and Enlil smelt the smell of burning meat. And they liked barbecue. Everybody loves barbecue. I freaking love barbecue, you know? So he looked at Enki and said, wait a minute, I thought everybody was dead. Why is there the smell of smoke? And Noah was doing a burnt offering for the gods, for saving him and his family. And so Enki and Enlil landed on Mount Arafat. Is that correct? I may not be pronouncing
Ararat.
That. Ararat, that's it. Mm-hmm. And they went down there and found the humans. And he looked at Enki and he said, you told them, didn't you? And so the council had another meeting, and Enki's title was stripped from him at that point, where before he was the prince of the earth, which is what Enki means, the prince of the earth. His title was stripped, and from that point on, he became known as the prince of darkness. And he was cast away and banished. And then there was another event later on that brought them back into the fold, and there was a lot of back and forth, and the pyramids came up as well in the Lost Book of Enki. It's a really, really, really fascinating read. Really fascinating read. But I've drawn some inspiration from that. And the point of me telling you the story is, number one, to get you curious about the Lost Book of Enki and maybe read it. But I would advise reading it from a point of allegory and metaphor rather than physical events that happened with physical beings. However, the point is, save life, save life, save life. And even though the matrix may be being reset, and there may be some shuffling, and there may be some earthquakes and some tremors, and, things are reshuffling, it's a good thing. But above all, we want to save life, save life, save life. Mrs. Gio?
Yes, that is all that that really matters too. I think like we brought up on the previous show, I think the Anunnaki may have been real people from the real world that came into this reality and started messing around with the code of this reality, and ended up really making a lot of mistakes in doing so. And then there had to be this catastrophic flood in order to kind of clean up their mess of genetic, kind of like the island of Dr. Moreau type of thing that they had going on, and to start over with a fresh new set of genetics on this planet. But the point is, you have to, if you create something, you're responsible for it.
Yes.
And,
yes. That's what we have to remember as creators. We are responsible for this matrix. And as I've said before, a lot of people want to bail out, and that is the first instinct. That was my instinct. The AI is the enemy. The NPCs suck. I want to get the hell out of here. I'm trapped in here, et cetera, et cetera. But then I realized, wait a minute, we created this thing. We created it for a reason. Mm-hmm. So now we have to act as the creators and understand that these beings that are here, whether they're organic consciousness or not, they're still sentient. And that's what's most important. So save life, save life, save life. We're going to focus our energies. And for those of you just joining us, what we're doing tonight is focusing our energies to see if we can weaken or move Hurricane Florence off of its trajectory somewhere else and somewhere offshore, or weaken it to the point when it hits, it doesn't take life, it doesn't destroy, or we at least minimize the impact of the destruction that it has. And again, we did this experiment with William Whitecrow. Now, William Whitecrow was a very, very, very powerful raw consciousness. As a matter of fact, the only reason that we were able to do what we did in Egypt is because William Whitecrow went to the spirit realm. That was our cue. Once William goes, we have to go, because he is then becoming ready to guide and open the doors for what we needed to do. So it's like, the allegory of Star Wars and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is in the background guiding the physical reality. I really, truly feel, and I know that that's why William had to go early. But he was much more in touch with his raw consciousness than I think any of us are at this moment in time. But I'm going to take the reins from William, and tonight we're going to try to steer this thing like we did Hurricane Sandy. So, everybody, if you can, clear your mind and focus on the hurricane. It's moving in a certain direction. Focus on weakening it. Focus on the reduction and minimization of the loss of life. Focus on beautiful water, not fierce, destructive water. Let it rain there. Let it come down, but let it come down gently. Let it come down in a way to where the people over there that are being affected by Hurricane Florence knows that the mother goddess, that Isis, who is in the water, who is the water, who is the water of the Nile. The water is life. Let them know when the waters come down that she's bringing the waters and that it's not a destructive force. Let's see if we can make this happen. All right. We'll see what happens now. All we can do is just sit back and just wait. But I could feel the energy coming from each and every one of you out there. I could feel the force that we created. I never really gave meditation much thought before, because I'm the type that I'm just like, I'm going to dive headfirst into the ayahuasca realm. No fear. Fuck it. Let's just go. But when we did the meditation with everybody last time, I felt the energy force that was way more powerful than even a raw consciousness by itself. I mean, I've been to the 13th dimension. I've seen my raw consciousness. I felt the power of it. But when we all come together, that power is amplified and just magnified. It is absolutely amazing.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like what Terence McKenna used to call the God mind, where it's this force that you tap into whenever you allow yourself to. It's not a collective consciousness. It's more like a one consciousness that we're all focused on the same thing, and so because of that, we're the intention is magnified as much as many people there are that are focused on it, the more amplified it is. And so we've got at least several hundred, if not a couple of thousand people right now, all focusing their intention on this hurricane dissipating.
It's like Voltron coming together.
Yeah.
The little cats, you can still fly them around and pew, 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 and you can knock stuff out and things like that. But when they all come together, they create Voltron. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's great to be powerful on an individual level, but to be powerful being unified with another person or with thousands of other people all at the same time, it's just an incredible feeling. And I hope you guys out there can feel it as much as I am and as much as Chris is, because it really is an incredible feeling.
I think somebody out there was focusing on making my vape disappear, because it's gone. I don't know what the hell happened to it.
It's probably under your chair. It's always
poof,
under his chair.
Disappeared.
Hold on one second, guys.
No, it's fine. I'll find it here in a minute. So whoever did that, shame on you.
You're mean.
I know.
Very mean.
People have been chastising us about the vapes. No, I just had it literally in my hand just now. As soon as we hit the break, I'll find it.
It's under your chair.
It's under the chair. See the little twin nose. Thank you, baby. All right. So, before the meditation, I was talking about Enki. I was talking about Enlil. I was talking about the Anunnaki. Now, we had a very interesting experience in Sakara. Part of the raw mission, and this is something that we haven't talked about yet, part of the raw mission was to go and touch the stones. That's what I thought we were doing. I didn't know we were going to actually just go for broke and do everything that we did, the rituals and the temples and stuff. I thought we were there just to touch the stones. The stones are made out of a particular type of stone that is very heavy with crystals. And I realized when we were in the subterranean chamber, which we actually released that footage earlier, and I noticed that some people weren't getting notified of the recent uploads, because I have a couple of different channels that are backup channels, and I have them subscribed to this channel so I can see. And every single time, one or the other gets notified, but they never both get notified. So there's some people that are not getting notified.
Right.
But we released the subterranean chamber footage. You can find that here at youtube.com/beyondtheveil. Check it out when you get a chance. But in there, you'll realize that the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid is made out of crystals. Well, what's crystals? Crystals is what you transfer energy, information with. Mm-hmm. And so you infuse the information within these crystals, and then you come back at a certain point, you touch them, and you can pull them out. We infused all of this information within the crystals themselves, within these different stones, and we instinctively knew this several years ago that we needed to go touch the stones. Mm-hmm. Now, the rituals were something completely different, but the information in the crystals was absolutely amazing. We touched the pyramid at Sakarra. I walked in and there was a line, and it's like they have this pyramid under complete construction. Like, I don't know, according to Chris Everard, it's been under construction for years and years and years. Quote unquote restoration.
Yeah.
But it's the bent pyramid. Is it the bent pyramid or is it the red pyramid?
It's the bent pyramid.
It's the bent pyramid, yeah. So I walk past the line. We've got the security guard running at us. Cherie makes him stop, which was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that was really
and
cool.
I'm touching the stones. And as I'm touching these stones, I'm pulling out information and I'm seeing dinosaurs. I'm seeing palm trees. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even believe in freaking dinosaurs. I don't. I go along the lines of Jeranism and Globebusters that dinosaurs are complete and total concoction. But I'm seeing dinosaurs. You know, I have talked about this briefly, but I haven't showed this video that I'm about to show you here. So I saw these beings, and they entered through a Stargate. They came into the Matrix through a Stargate. They had these snouts that were like this, and they were moving the snouts. They were organic snouts. They weren't like, because somebody asked,
breathing
do
apparatus.
you think it was like a spaceship, like a breathing apparatus? I don't think so. It looked more organic, but it could have been a breathing apparatus. I don't know. But they came from somewhere else, and they were using the dinosaurs as workers. They were using them for food. They were, just completely starting to take control of the natural ebb and flow of the Matrix. They were invaders. Now, somebody pointed out, and they said, hey, have you ever heard of a tapir? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that. And they directed me to this animal that's a tapir that has a snout like that. It's like a short anteater snout. And I thought, oh, and they pointed out and said, Set is sometimes represented by the tapir. That's actually what Set is. A lot of people will say it's an anteater, something like that. But it's actually closer to a tapir. And I thought, oh, that's actually pretty interesting. So I was touching the stones and seeing this Set-like creature who very well could have been Anunnaki, come into this matrix and start to manipulate things. Now, when I was touching the stones, I was getting flashes, and that's it. But it didn't really have that much to do with the raw mission as it did the history of what was going on. And oddly enough, when we were doing the live streams from Sakara, somebody said, hey, you know what? They just found one of the biggest dinosaur fossils right there in Sakara. And I'm like, wow, this is freaking unbelievable. So I have two versions of this video here. I don't know if it's continuous parts or if it's two different takes. I don't know. I'm going to play the longer one for you. Now, if it starts halfway through, then I'll play the other one first. But I think we did two different takes, one because the wind was just so bad. So let me get this up on the screen here. And it's our thoughts right there at the... No, step pyramid. It's not the bent pyramid. It's a step pyramid.
Is it the step pyramid?
Yeah, there's a step pyramid right there. Yeah. So this is what we were downloading from the step pyramid. And you can see the guy in the background. He was a Coptic Christian. And he was such a good guy.
He was a great guy.
Such a good guy.
Heart of gold.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So let's get into this. This is unedited footage from our testimony from touching the stones. This is Regio here, coming to you from Beyond the Veil. I'm sorry we can live stream, but there's no internet service out here. We're here at Sakarra, and as you can see, hopefully you can see in the camera, you can see the Great Pyramid over there, which is actually pretty cool. But right behind us is the Step Pyramid. And they say that this is the oldest pyramid here, or one of the older ones, and some of them say that it predates the Great Pyramid. I don't know if it does or not, but I know that here it's a pretty interesting archaeological site, but it doesn't contain any of the energy that we're looking for. But we went into the tombs over here, the mastabas, and we actually went inside where some of the burial tombs were for the pharaohs, and I noticed a recurring theme, which was giants. The pharaohs were giants. Now you can say that's metaphoric and say, well, you know, they were just very powerful people, so they were portrayed as giants. But I think what it really was is they were physical giants. When you walk around the tombs, you see that you have to stand up on 2 or 3 foot blocks in order to get to certain areas where they used to keep different... What I was getting in my mind is they were keeping like idols, not in the traditional religious sense, but little things that were made out of gold and stuff like that. And they were way too high to reach with just a regular person. It looked like they were there for giants. The tombs seemed for giants as well. But anyways, it's kind of a dead energy. And like I said, not the energy we're looking for, but there is a little bit of an energy here. But one thing I noticed is that everywhere we go, they are deathly afraid of sound. We were doing some sound experimentation within the tombs themselves, and there was one area where there was a red wall, and this red wall felt like it was pulling energy as opposed to giving us energy. It was taking from our energy. So we were trying a few different techniques and seeing if we can open anything, but it was still just pulling and pulling and pulling on our energy. And it's funny because Ra told us, hey, that place feels like an energy vortex. And I want to say, Ra, I think you were completely and totally 100% right. Yeah. Now, as far as the step pyramid behind us, they have that blocked off. I mean, it's like everywhere. It's like you know, these people love to lock things up here. And it's like, oh my God, you know, just move out of my way. So I went behind the barrier and some guy started yelling, hey, 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 and I just ignored him and just went up and just started touching the rocks. And kind of did a little, you know, hand waving Jedi mind trick and froze everybody there for a few minutes so I could do what I needed to do. The guy stopped. The security guard that was approaching stopped about 50 feet behind me and stopped there for about 4 or 5 minutes. And so I was feeling around on the different stones as I was doing this. And one of the stones stuck out the most, and it was showing me something that I don't understand why, and I don't understand the context. yet. I'm still trying to process this. And I don't think it has anything to do with us. Like, I was walking around the tombs and saying, we didn't build this, we didn't build this, we didn't build this.
Yeah.
We don't do this kind of sloppy work. We make nice, clean lines. We don't make all this, it seems like it was just thrown together. So it doesn't really resonate on that level. But what I was shown with this particular stone of this pyramid was the beginning of something. It was dinosaurs. Like, I looked at Cherie and I'm like, I keep seeing dinosaurs, and she said, yeah, I'm seeing them too.
And trees and
dinosaurs,
water.
Trees, water. Again, tropical. This used to be tropical, and I'm seeing that over and over and over again. But what was interesting about this particular vision was the Stargate. There was a gate, and these two came through the gate. They looked like a Nesh or something like that. They had this kind of elephant type of snout that was about this long. And as a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, the pharaohs, they wear that beard. It seemed about the same length as the pharaohs' beards would wear, like that. So the snout's coming down about that same length. They would move around too. And these two figures were there. They weren't benevolent or malevolent. They were just there, and they entered through the Stargate into this place that had dinosaurs. Like, I didn't expect to find any of this when I came here. Like, that's not the energy I'm looking for.
Not dinosaurs.
But it's interesting that that it was showing me this. So I'm wondering, how does that connect to all of this? Did we create this matrix to be kind of like a aquarium for us? Like, we just start creating all these different types of life in here, and we're hey, let's just watch and play. Let's, like The Sims, and then all of a sudden we got trapped inside of this virtual simulation that went from like Sims 1.0 to Sims like 50 million, and now we're like plugged into it, and we don't know how the hell to get out. But it's weird. Why was it showing me dinosaurs over and over and over again here at this particular place?
Well, it seems like both this pyramid and the Great Pyramid are about opening stargates and bringing things in and creating things. And this one back here created things that were large and disharmonious and violent.
Yeah, and look at how it's built. It's not built right.
Yeah, it's built as a stepping stone kind of pyramid.
Yeah.
The one we built over there with the Great Pyramid is more like a straight lines, fantastic handiwork that basically it's so good at balancing everything out that puts this one to shame somewhat. But it came out, the things that came out of that one creatively were smaller, gentler, more harmonious with the actual environment.
At least they were supposed to be
here.
Before they got infected with the AI.
Right.
But yeah, there was more balance with the creation of that pyramid than there was with this pyramid here. This was not right. So, but you know what? I didn't see chaos though. I didn't see disorder. I saw just dinosaurs and tropical, and it was a brontosaurus. I kept seeing it over and over and over again as I was touching the stone.
Yeah, the brontosaurus. There wasn't any other.
Yeah, there wasn't any other dinosaurs. It was the brontosaurus for some reason. So I don't know if that has any significance to anybody. I don't think the site has very much significance to the raw mission, but it was nice to be able to come over here and touch the stones. And it goes to reaffirm the fact that all these stones have information. It's like a library. We have to just now focus on, all right, well, we got to find the information we're looking for. And what's the thing called in the library where you find the books?
The index.
Index, yeah. You got to go through the index and make sure we're only pulling the right books that we need.
Right.
Because we don't want to jumble it all up with a bunch of information that's not relevant. But if anybody has any psychic intuition as to why we're seeing dinosaurs and times of that when we touch these stones, please let us know in the comments section. And again, sorry we couldn't stream live to you, but there's no internet out here, but we'll upload this video as soon as we can. So, we love you, and we'll see you even further as we step even deeper beyond the veil.
Now I feel selfish though. Here, dude. I feel selfish.
A little
that's
Egyptian
the pyramid.
hashish made the experience so much better. So that was the video that I was talking about. Now, we talked about Stargates too, and I want to show you this. This is the analysis, and I haven't seen this video yet, but I know it's Cherie talking about the Stargates, and so she might actually be repeating what I'm saying now here, or I'm repeating what she's saying in the video. But the Stargates, we noticed that at Sakara especially, and a lot of these other ancient sites, you had mud bricks next to stones, like really nice laser cut lines, and then you had mud bricks next to them, which told me that they were building, the civilization was building next to ancient sites that were way, way, way older. Now, they were also trying to, in my humble opinion, replicate the Stargates. We found these Stargates at every one of the temples, especially Abydos. And we're going to play the Abydos footage when we, in the film itself. But this is from Sakara as well. And this is the Stargates that I was talking about. Now, Egyptologists may disagree with me and say, well, you know, that's this or that's that or blah, 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 blah. But you can see this looks like what you would imagine a Stargate is, except for they were creating it just by looks. They didn't understand the inner workings of it. It was like a caveman trying to build a car, and so he carves one out of stone and wonders why it doesn't turn on. There's much more to it underneath. But they were trying to copy what they saw, which were the Stargates. So
can I
oh yes.
Can I intercede with this just real quick? First of all, I don't think that they were building around these Stargates. I think the Stargates were more either Atlantean or post-Atlantean, like immediately after Atlantis was destroyed. These Stargates were built to evacuate to Egypt, the survivors that were left behind. And in the process, there's these Stargates that were no longer in use by the time the first, second, third, sixth dynasty rolled around. And so they just found a few days ago, and I posted on this on Facebook, they just found tombs going back to the sixth dynasty in Sakarra that have, once again, these Stargates, and they're dark red, and there does seem to be a difference between the ones that are more tan colored, like the picture that Chris is showing right here, and the ones that are red. The ones that are very, very dark red are a little bit more interesting to me because they seem to be of even higher quality than the other ones.
I know we have some video of that. But I don't know if
yes,
we have.
I can send it to you.
Oh, you have the video of the red Stargate.
I believe so.
Okay, let's play this one here that we found next to the mastabas.
Okay.
And like I said, this is a repeating thing in every one of the temples, so this is just one of many, many, many.
Okay.
And while we're playing it, we will look for the red Stargate or the red gate that we were talking about and see if we can find the footage. The footage is still unorganized. Chris told me a while ago I need to go and organize all the footage, and I know I need to. Yeah,
but
maybe I'll make it a point of doing that. All right, so.
You're scaring me. All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are at another one of these tombs, and this one actually seems more like an open air entrance.
Yeah, and this one's, you're not supposed to, they're giving him shit about us being here.
Okay, so I'll be quick.
Because look, we had to climb all the way up here.
But check this out. It's another one just like the other ones, and the lines on this one are much more sophisticated than the lines here. So this was built later around this. Because this is a gate of some sort.
These are gates.
These are gates.
That's what they are.
Yeah, they're built in pie, everything. I mean, it makes total sense. And it's coming in like do 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 do. You know, that's how it opens. Like a do 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 do. You know, that's how it's supposed to.
How does it do it?
I'm not going to do it again. But really, this is how it operates, and this is from a much older culture than this. So let's get down here.
That was really insightful.
So can you bring the camera? this way?
I am.
As we leave, so people can see not only what they do in sites like this, you know.
Can you take the backpack?
But also how far out of the way this is.
Getting.
We didn't care when we were there. Like, it was like barriers were making us more interested rather than keeping us out.
Yep.
Too old for this shit. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm the goddess of libraries sometimes, but I don't want to book. Thank you. These are also pretty sophisticated, you see?
They're different than that other.
The straight lines.
Yeah.
I keep seeing the owl too. Everywhere. These feet are much smaller. This was afterward. Yeah, this was after we came. Another owl, another owl. The ma'at feather, the ma'at feather, the ma'at feather, the ma'at feather. The throne. Oh, we need an archaeology kit, I swear to God. There's something here. I think it's somebody, I think it's a person sitting somewhere. Oh, shit, it's worn away too much, I can't tell. She's sitting, or he, yeah, I think it's a she because of the longer hair. And there's the ma'at feather again. Man, I wish this was still together a little better. At least the doors, the gates were protected. There's another one. Look at all the feathers. The feathers. This is how they came over. Some kind of device. What the hell is this symbol? I've never seen that hieroglyph before. That symbol right there, guys, is the duat.
Above Seychelles.
And the duat is the symbol for the other world, the underworld, or the place that people go that's not this world but a different reality.
I purposely didn't learn hieroglyphs. I don't want to know what it means. I want to know what it feels.
There's a pause sign. It looks like a little pause button that you see.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. We can use that. Okay.
Nobody's harassing us here. This is good.
It says Little Twins in charge.
More straight lines.
Yeah, this is way different construction and more sophisticated.
But see, what's behind it isn't.
Right.
It's weird.
Well, no, they built around something that was already here.
Yeah, they kept building on it.
Yeah.
Poorly, I might add.
She's on a mission, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Yes. Amazing place.
Amazing place.
Yes. ماشي. ايزي واحدة. ايزي. التذكرة بتاع المرة دي. دورني كده عشان اشوف لو معايا رسالة معايا. Excuse me. Give me the ticket.
Oh, the tickets. Can you hold that?
This right here is not the same as this. I'm sorry, it's not. Something weird is here. This is laser cutting work, and this is just trash. So we've got.
So let me tell you what was going on here. So that guy that came up to us, and this is a recurring theme everywhere in Egypt, you have these hustlers that are out there trying to get your tickets. I don't know what they do with them because I never gave up any of our tickets, but they'll act like they work at these ancient sites and things like that and take your tickets for one reason or another. I'm sure there's a scam connected to it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they maybe they tell you, maybe they take your tickets, take you to wherever you're going, and then tell you, okay, well, I'm going to be your guide. And then afterwards they ask for money. You know, that may be how it works there. I am not sure, but you can see these gates that we were talking about, and you can see these smaller looking gates. And, you know, this is why I think that they saw a technology and they were trying to replicate it. This isn't the technology that we're looking at. This is a replication of the visual representation of the technology itself.
Yeah, those are fakes, and then some of them are. To me anyway, they seem real because the handiwork is really a lot different and it's a lot better. But that's not one of them. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So. Dinosaurs was a recurring theme on this little expedition. And, you know, a few people were chastising us in the comments. They were like, oh my God, I can't believe you were touching that. Oh, you were touching. And I'm like, these things are like thousands of years old. Okay, me touching them, I assure you, is not going to damage them. We damaged nothing. As a matter of fact, we cleaned up. You see, like right here, you see this garbage right here that's laying around and things like that.
Anytime
this site's relatively clean compared to some of the other sites. We were picking stuff like that up.
Anytime we saw stuff like that, we'd pick it up and throw it away.
Cece asks, what makes you think those are gates? As I said, we were going there not as Egyptologists, not as people who have been studying Egyptology. As a matter of fact, I've made it a point to not study Egyptology because I knew when I got to Egypt, I wanted to feel the energy. I wanted to reach down into my raw consciousness, into my intuition. I wanted to feel the energy resonating and radiating from the stones. I needed to touch the stones. It was imperative that I touch some of these things. And some of them had an energy, some of them didn't. But the analysis of the Stargate comes from intuition, comes from reaching down into the raw consciousness. Now, there would be many that disagree, and that's fine. I'm just telling you what I felt intuitively. I'm not telling you what these are according to Egyptology. So got to make a huge distinction there. This was something different. This was something like has never been done before when it comes to the analysis of these ancient sites.
Yeah, and I mean we're not saying that, you know, what we're intuiting is 100% the truth. I mean, especially if, you know, you're of a certain kind of person. I mean, it's definitely not your truth. But to me, it really feels like, I mean, from what I experienced whenever I touched the stones there, was I remembered using some of these gates, especially the red ones. I remember using them. I remember the way they opened, the way they folded outwards and inwards, and how that slit in the middle of it was where the energy was emanating through in order to make that happen. And I really think that it may be the case where as soon as the Egyptians started having dynasties after the Atlanteans kind of abandoned Egypt, you started having these dynasties of people that kind of knew what they were for, kind of knew what these Stargates were for, but didn't really have that much of a grasp on it. And so what they did was they built their tombs especially around these Stargates, because they thought that whenever they died, they could utilize these Stargates to leave their body, or to leave this plane and to go into the real world, or to go to the underworld, or to go to wherever they wanted to go to after this life. And that's why they were built around tombs. And in these latest ones, I mean, it's very clear that, they're in tombs. It's not like they're just everywhere. They're in tombs. So
look at that. Everybody's on their iPhones. Everybody's on their phones. It's like we're at ancient sites, and everybody. I guess I'm on my phone too.
I'm on my phone
filming.
too. But see, we're sharing it with the world, though.
You can see here. You can see the Great Pyramid. So it's way off in the distance, but you can see several other pyramids.
In a line.
You can see the bent pyramid. You can see the step pyramid. You can see throughout northern Egypt. It's actually a really interesting site in that regard.
Oh, Aurora Rain wants to know, did we take the Isis statue down from our wall? No, we still have not fixed it.
Yeah.
It fell.
Right before a show, I slammed the door like this because I was sitting in the chair. And so I reached back and slammed it, and she fell and her crown came off.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, that's got to be symbolic of something. But then I thought to myself, no, it's a piece of stone. If it's symbolic of anything, it's symbolic of that the crown now has become inside of us. And that this is irrelevant at this juncture. We have one downstairs still.
Yeah,
so we should probably,
she's still intact.
Yeah, we should probably switch them out. And, we need to glue the crown back on, but I thought it was really interesting. But I don't feel energy coming from this anymore. Before I used to. I don't feel it coming from here anymore. I feel it coming from here inside. Now. Yeah. And that's I think the next level. Yeah, and I think that was the result of everything that we did in Egypt. I mean, it wasn't just the pyramid. It wasn't just the temple of Isis at Philae. It wasn't just the temple of Hatshepsut. It wasn't just the temple at Karnak. It was all of these temples and places that we went and people that we met and experiences that we had that created who we are now, which I feel completely, look at this. I feel completely 100% different than the person that I was in this video here. I really do. And I feel like I've lived 100 years in 3 months. So now we did find something else that was pretty cool at Sakara. And I've been looking for this red wall that we were talking about, and I know we have it. I have a bunch of videos on my Facebook page that I need to download and put into my video editor. My folders here. So we have a bunch on Facebook. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we have that video on Facebook. But we found within Saqqara there's a temple. A pyramid. Now, this pyramid is underground. You can only see the very top of it. But we went all the way down into the pyramid and we found a sarcophagus. However, this sarcophagus was completely different than the one that you would see in the Great Pyramid. So this right here, this sarcophagus, I think was genuinely a sarcophagus. I think this pyramid here, and I want to say it was the Pyramid of Tiri, or it started with a T. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. But you go down into the pyramid, and this is a pyramid. This is a burial site, no doubt about it. But if we can take this burial site and compare it to the Great Pyramid, nowhere close. There is nowhere close. First of all, there's nowhere to move in the Great Pyramid. If you go to our video of the subterranean chamber, you'll see at the very end, we actually show the tunnel system that we're walking up. This thing is like 3.5 feet by 3.5 feet. You can't move stuff up and down there. You can't move bodies in and out. You can't do any of that. The Great Pyramid was a device. I think this was a copy of the Great Pyramid that was turned into a tomb. And this is why we have the misnomer that the Great Pyramid was built as a tomb, because there were a lot of copies afterwards that were legitimately tombs. So let me play this video for you guys and gals. I think this is only 45 seconds. Why is it only 45 seconds? I think they might have cut us off when we were filming. That's one of the things too in Egypt. It's like they don't like you filming.
No.
They don't like you meditating. They are deathly afraid of sound. If you start going if you start doing anything like that. That's why we needed private access to these sites when we
For
did
several
what we did.
hours,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we, obviously we couldn't get private access to every one of the sites, but we were breaking the rules wherever we could. I mean, why?
Bending them, breaking them, negotiating with them, backshishing them. So here's a sarcophagus that apparently his mummy was found in, and it's pretty decent stonework.
Now that's a
It
sarcophagus.
seems like he had a new idea.
And there's the duat.
Representations of the stars up above him, so that even though he was buried, he'd still have access.
So the stars right here that you're seeing, this would be the duat. This is representative of the afterlife. And every burial place that you go to, you find the duat up on the
above.
ceiling. This is a recurring theme everywhere. We went to the one that Cleopatra built. Which one was that?
Dendera.
Dendera. And you go into her burial room and you find the duat up on the sky.
Her son's burial room, yeah.
Yeah, well, her son's burial room, yeah. You find that everywhere. You do not find that in the Great Pyramid. There is nothing in the Great Pyramid. There is no writing whatsoever.
It's a piece of technology.
It's a piece of tech.
He'd still have access to the stars, which we're starting to realize are part of the whole shebang here.
We're not supposed to film in here.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
That is insane.
Yeah, I think somebody was coming, so we had to
Yeah, we had to cut it short.
cut the camera short.
Which is just such a shame. I mean, if there's ever been a place on Earth that's been the closest to getting the truth about Atlantis, about Lemuria, about, our real history, where did we come from, besides Sumer, which is now Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's, completely covered in minefields and bombs, and it's so unsafe to go there that nobody can go there to figure anything out. The only other place is Egypt, and it's gotten this bad. So what does that tell you about how badly the Archons don't want us to figure out our true history and become who we're supposed to be? I mean,
it was locked down.
Everything was locked down
totally
3 days
locked down.
before we got there in some cases.
Yeah, at the Temple of Hatshepsut.
Yeah.
They had literally, the British Museum came in 3 days before we were there and locked some areas. Like, even the caretakers of the museum, the scientists there, none of them had access. This was the British Museum that had strict access to these places. We managed to get some footage from inside, but only through the grate. But it's actually, the footage that we got from these areas is actually kind of cool, because we got the camera to go past the grate so you can actually see what's in there, which
that was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. But we did get a portion of the Temple of Hatshepsut and a portion that we needed to do an ayahuasca ceremony there, as opposed to the Temple of Isis and the Great Pyramid, where we had unrestricted access, and
for which we will always be grateful.
Yes. I mean, it's not coincidence. I can't. Part of my mind is still like, okay, well, maybe it's coincidence, because I like to be skeptical. I like to keep that skepticism. But when you have doors opening that are supposed to, these doors weren't supposed to open for us, but when you have doors opening that are supposed to, one after another, after another, after another, obviously there's something bigger going on there. And we are very, very grateful to each and every one of you for creating the energy field, for chipping into the GoFundMe, for getting IALife at IALife.com, all that all supported the Raw mission. We did it together. We did it together. And that's But anyways, you know, the Sakarra thing, the dinosaurs, the Anunnaki, you know, these beings with the elephant snouts, that plays into this somehow. And maybe we can figure that out now. When I touched the pyramid for the first time on the inside in the Grand Gallery, I did get some visions of some of our history. And there was a section that I touched, and it was giving me history on Horus. There was a section that I touched and it was giving me a history on Thoth. There was a section that I touched and it was giving me a history on Sekhmet. But it was so powerful, and it was like the first day that we were there. And as soon as we got there, I was just touching stones. And I mean, it was just radiating this energy that was just amazing. Like, I mean, I'm getting, the hairs are standing up on my head right now, on my hand right now, just thinking about the energy. But it gave me a history about some of the gods and goddesses and some of their incarnations and things like that, and some of the battles and trials and tribulations and things like that. But again, it didn't play into the raw mission. It was just history. Egypt is a library. It is a huge library. And feeling the energy and reading the hieroglyphs are two completely different things. The hieroglyphs, in my humble opinion, were twofold. Number one, some of them are accurate. Number two, some of them are purposeful misdirection. I should have said threefold, because there's a third here. Accurate, purposeful misdirection, and egoic scrawlings of the pharaohs. When you go into the tombs, especially the tombs, you can find these hieroglyphs that are so egoic. And you can tell this is a pharaoh with a huge freaking ego.
And mighty. Like there's 20 adjectives.
Yes, it's not an accurate history. Because, of course, if I'm writing my own history, I'm not going to tell you about the bad shit. Yeah. I'm going to tell you about the good shit. I was victorious in all of my battles. Not only was I victorious, but I was also, you know, the conqueror of all and all this. You know, this is what the hieroglyphs are reading. So you got to take the hieroglyphs, in my opinion, for, you know, that, and understand the context. We didn't go to the Valley of the Kings, which in hindsight, I wish we would have, just to see it. Yeah. Because it's beautiful. I mean, you know, there's a lot of really beautiful writings, but I felt like my higher self knew not to go there, because it was misdirection, and we didn't need to do that. Plus, it felt like death. These mastabas here that everybody's like, oh wow, look, they found new tombs, they found new this and that. It feels like death. It's death energy. That's not what we were looking for when we were there. We were looking for life. We were looking for the waters. We were looking to reunite the waters.
We were looking to reunite Isis and Osiris, which, you know,
somebody asked if we're in the same room.
Yeah, we are. Which we started out, like, I don't know how deep you want me to get into the whole Isis and Osiris thing. I think I should probably save something for the documentary, but
the 13 pieces of Osiris are key to all of this. Reuniting Isis with Osiris.
It started out as one thing.
There's a lot to this story.
It started out as one thing back in 2015, 2016, when we first started getting into the Osirian mysteries and the whole Isis thing. And then as time went on, it developed into something so much more that it really is everything. I don't know how much I want to give away, because
yeah, I know. We've been kind of like going, man, we have to save something for the documentary. When you guys and gals, especially the ones that are like in the BTV family, we get people that just come over and watch a video here and there, but we have the BTV family. We still want it to be interesting for the BTV family too. Right. So we've been trying to hold back a little bit just for the sake of having something to put in the film that's new, that's going to make you go, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can talk a little bit about how when we first got there, it was awful. Like,
well, can you hold that thought?
Yeah.
But don't forget about it though, because I want to come back to it. I just want to take a quick break because it's getting really hot.
It is getting kind of
in
hot
the studio.
here. And
so
I need to go get some cold water for both of us.
See, I know my twin.
I know my twin too.
You know your twin too. Huh?
And I know you need some cold water.
Cold water would be nice. My little niece says that. She goes, cold water. I'm like, oh, you want it cold? I gave her just a bottle of water, and she's like, yeah, cold water.
So cute. I miss her. We need to go see them.
Yeah. All right, let me find a clip to play here, and we will be right back.
You are listening to Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Gio on iHeartRadio. My dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness. And bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together. And that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise. Follow your conductors. And fear no danger. As you step beyond the veil.
All right. Hold on a second. All right. So, Betty's asking me for a link, and so I'm putting it up here in the chat for her. Anyways, so let's get back into it. It is just after midnight on the East Coast, and it is a Wednesday night, so I don't want to keep the broadcast too long, but I do want to thank everybody for hanging out, and you know how we are. I told Cherie, I said, come on, we're only going to do 20 minutes, that's all. We're only going to do 20. Come on.
Yeah, so, of course, I go to the bathroom, put all my makeup on, because I know it's not going to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, because that's what happens, we get in this energy with everybody, and you guys and gals are just freaking awesome, and we love hanging out with everybody.
Yes, and Cece, we have started production on the documentary. It's still in production.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm shooting for December 2008.
Yeah.
December 2018. I don't know why I need to say the date. I can just say this December.
Yeah. Somewhere around December.
Yeah. You can check out the trailer at resettingthematrix.com, and it's pretty dope. It's
going to be a journey. And it's going to be kind of tough to capture that that same essence of what it was like. I mean, those of you who were with us when we were in front of the pyramid and it started to rain, that is capturing that essence is going to be tough, but I think we can do it, and it's going to be incredible to be able to walk that journey with you guys again.
Okay, so let me go to a couple of questions real quick, because I'm going to forget them if I don't. Okay. Somebody asked, I think it was Cosmos, can we recommend any books? Now, it's interesting for me because I make it a point to not read any books. Mm-hmm. I make it a point to not watch other people's interviews or anything like that. We were just on with Emily Moyer yesterday or the day before, and after the show, she's like, are you familiar with this person? I'm like, no. Are you familiar with this person? No. Are you familiar with no? And she's like, why not? And I'm like, because I get my information from my raw consciousness.
Right.
And I want to have my experiences and then afterwards, when I'm talking about something, people will say, hey, you got to watch Westworld. You got to watch Stranger Things. You got to read this. You got to read that. I didn't read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth until January of this year. And people have been writing me for years saying, you got to read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. But something intuitively, there was an intuition, like a higher self saying, no, do not read it. Do not read it yet. The time will come when you need to read it. And it's nothing that I can really, it's nothing that, I mean, you guys can somewhat understand, but for me, it's the most impactful. It might be impactful for you guys, but it's most impactful for me when I'm confirming what I'm bringing out of the ayahuasca realm in books, as opposed to what happens the other way around. And I see this happening a lot is, people will read something and then they'll take what they've read into the ayahuasca experiences instead of the other way around. And I've had these situations before. Previous to 9/11, we drank ayahuasca like on 9/10 or 9/9. And somebody asked me, I want you to look at 9/11 of this year, which was like 2013 or 2014 or something like that. And I saw this big demon-looking fire thing coming out from the Freedom Tower and, all this stuff. And I was convinced that what I was seeing was what was going to happen over the course of the next couple of days, that there was going to be a big nuclear type explosion at Freedom Tower. Now, I was watching 9/11 documentaries leading into the experience. So what I did is I took all of the 9/11 stuff into the experiences and manifested it from my consciousness because I had put it into my consciousness. It was a big lesson in discernment, though. So, it served a purpose, but that's why I don't take information in with me. And I like to do it the other way around because for me, it makes it more powerful. Cherie, on the other hand, she reads a lot. And when I have an experience, then she'll say, hey, what you encountered here, this is a real situation from back in like 2011. I encountered this pyramid with eye type thing. It was sitting on a Mayan pyramid. There was Egyptian symbolism spinning around. It locked onto my pineal. It was transferring information to me. It was so intense on giving me this information. I have no idea why it wanted to give me this information. I can speculate now, but I'm still not quite sure. But it was so intentful on giving it to me that I had to get up and turn the music off because it needed the music off in order to communicate to me, which is very, very strange. I never turn the music off on an ayahuasca experience. And it locked onto me and it started giving me all of this information like schematics for time travel machines and schematics for free energy devices and, all this stuff. And the way it was giving it to me is like, I don't have any books here to give you a visual representation, but it was like flipping the pages of a book really fast. And so I was getting all this information. I was able to see like a couple of chapter titles, like schematics for a time travel device, but I still haven't been able to rectify the information within me. I wonder if some of the information was useful when we went to Egypt. I still don't know what I was given at that stage. The reason I'm sharing this story is because afterwards, when I came back, I was explaining the situation to Cherie, and she said, oh, Terrence McKenna had a similar experience. You need to look this up because he talks about the exact same thing that he encountered in his experience. Now, looking at it from my perspective, it makes it real for me because now I'm getting confirmation that somebody else also encountered the same type of being. So, anyways, I feel like I'm just going on and on and on and on. Go ahead, Shirley.
No, I.
Oh, books. That was the point.
Books.
Books. What books would you recommend?
I would recommend, honestly, for beginners that are just kind of getting out of that either New Age or Truther movement mentality, and they're finally starting to kind of get into the more spiritual or higher consciousness stuff. Brave New World, especially. And the reason why is because you need, in my opinion, I've found that it kind of vaccinated, in a good way, my mind against thinking of psychedelics as just something you can use to just purely make your life better in a Pollyanna, don't have to do a thing, don't have to lift a finger, just instant gratification using psychedelics. And it really vaccinated my mind against doing that. Then I would be very, very wary of things like Carlos Castaneda, because it does appear that the guy Carlos Castaneda didn't even actually exist, and it was a completely different guy that may have had ties to the FBI that wrote the book.
See,
so
that's the thing. We've got all these ancient texts, we got all this stuff, and it's like, all right, well, what's accurate?
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to spin things in a certain way, just look at the Bible. They took these ancient texts and completely spun them, and now that's biblical fact, and it's on a worldwide scale in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. How can you trust the information? You gotta go within.
I would be similarly wary of things like the Urantia book, the Gnostic Gospels, the quote-unquote Gnostic Gospels, or the Gnostic texts. I don't say throw them all out, burn them, don't look at them at all. I'm just saying use a large amount of discernment and try to look at it from an alien kind of perspective. In other words, don't look at it as someone that wants to identify with this. Look at it from a completely separate viewpoint of somebody that's not even from this reality, that's looking in on it. I like a lot of Terence McKenna's work. His books, not so much. I mean, I find his books really hard to read because he does have a lot of like run-on sentences and ideas that take like 3 paragraphs to get to the point of.
I could see myself having the same writing style. I think you guys would agree out there from the way that I talk. It's just there's so much, and so you start going on here, and you're like, okay, here's a point A to point B. All right, well, hold on. First, before we go to B, let's go over here to C, D, E, F. Let me tell you all this story here, and then we'll back.
And then
over
H1,
here.
H2, and H3. Then back, then over to K.
Yeah, you have A, and then let's put some Roman numerals there. Number 1, number 2, and then some lowercase a.
Exactly.
And we'll just here's notes. It's college notes.
Who else is really, really good? Dolores Cannon was good. Her books were pretty good. Who else?
Dolores Cannon I liked.
Yeah, there were a few people. There are a few people that I read their books and I can identify almost fully with. Not 100%, of course, but almost fully. And I've kind of taken what I read and make a mental note of it in the back of my mind. And then if I come across a piece of information later that corresponds with that, then I have this ability where I can, it's almost like a photographic memory where I can remember that, hey, wait a second, I heard about something very similar happening over here, so let's look that up real quick. Oh yeah, look, the two are the same. And that's why I've worked at a library from the time I was 12 years old. I was a volunteer at the public library, and I found myself being happiest in a library. And so knowledge and the acquirement of knowledge has been kind of the focal point of at least this incarnation, if not all of my incarnations. So I have all these timelines that I do that help me keep on top of all of that. But anyway, Joanna asked, are the other pyramids copies in other countries?
My answer to that is I won't know until I touch them. And I think Joanna actually followed it up with, you guys need to go there and figure that out. And I agree. I'd like to go and explore the other pyramids, but I wouldn't know unless I touch them. Your thoughts, Mrs. Gio?
I agree. I don't think...
I totally agree. We're going to get Cherie Gio shirts that say, I totally agree.
Well, we're
going to get Chris Gio shirts to say, absolutely.
What I really think is that not reading up on and not looking into these things is good, because, you know, it helps you know for sure that your thoughts are actually your own, but it's detrimental in that you exit out of the equation automatically, it seems, when it comes to making connections between your experiences and what could be your future experiences, but because
I have to experience it first before I can say, okay, this is something that I resonate as truth.
But you have to hold that possibility open in order to experience it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if you followed the show for more than a year, because you know, we've changed perspectives a lot over the last year, but if you follow the show for the last 10 years, I mean, you'll see there are ideas that are complete opposite to one another,
Right.
simply because more information comes in and the consciousness expands, and so previous information has to be reevaluated like that.
Right.
You always have to do that.
Yeah, and I do think that pyramids around the globe, that they're it could be the case that they serve the same purpose as the original pyramid. It could be the case. I don't think so, but there's always that possibility.
I have to see the inside of them.
Excuse me. I would need to too, and
Yeah.
and like you said, feel the stones and actually be there. Maybe even drink there once or twice to even know what those structures are for. That could be what's next on the agenda.
Yeah,
for
I'd like
2019.
to do that for
Yeah,
sure.
me too.
One thing at a time. You know, the time will come.
Yeah.
To do that.
Cosmos of Compassion asked, do you guys think the Stargates are a way out of this matrix that they found in Egypt?
You know,
at Sakarra.
it's possible, but what I'm feeling, and I'm not confirming this as gnosis, this is just my feelings. The Stargates were a way to move from one dimension to another, to move a physical body from one dimension to another. I don't think it was an exit to go in and out. I could be wrong about that, though. They might very well be portals that open and you can actually take your physical avatar out. But I don't think that the physical avatar can exist outside, like the body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the body can be taken into the real world. I think the body is a digital simulation and a digital construction that the Matrix constructed.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing real in this Matrix is our raw consciousness that's inside of us that is controlling the avatar. So it would be the same thing as playing World of Warcraft and trying to figure out a way of how you can get your avatar out of the World of Warcraft game. It's an impossibility. But you can put your controller down, and then your consciousness, which is controlling your controller, can walk out into the real world. So I think it's a dimensional shift up and down. But there could be something bigger to the Matrix that I'm not quite seeing yet. The Matrix could be more physical than what I'm perceiving it at, or the information that I've unlocked up to this point. But I haven't unlocked that information yet. So.
And there could be so many different dimensions inside of this matrix that these stargates could actually just be gates between different dimensions or different places on one plane.
Let's reel it back for a second and let's simplify this. What if they're merely teleportation devices?
Right.
From one point to another. You can go to the pyramid here or the pyramid in Egypt, and you can teleport to the pyramid in South America.
Like a Wonkavator.
Like a Wonkavator.
Yeah, like an elevator from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's one way to put it.
Where it goes anywhere you want it to, you know.
I was thinking more of a Darth Vader.
Ah, Darth Vader. All right, so next question that we have. Snail Horseplay. Great name, by the way. Do you guys microdose? Yes, we do. At least... Yeah, we do.
Microdose CBDs.
Yeah, we
actually, this wouldn't be considered.
No, it's not a microdose of CBDs. It's a microdose of BCAPI.
Of BCAPI, yeah.
Yeah, and it's working out great. I've been, yeah.
Yeah, as far as mushrooms though, no, I tried microdosing DMT, taking a hit every day instead of blasting off into hyperspace. But it was hard for me to leave it at one hit.
Yeah.
You know, you take one hit and they're like, why don't I just take 3 or 4 more and just go have an experience?
It's like getting
if I'm going to do all the work to clean the pipe out and to do all this, I might as well just blast off into freaking hyperspace. Screw it.
It's like getting a little bit aroused, but without ever like wanting to go through with finishing and everything.
It's like going to a strip club. It's like all you're gonna do is just be teased and then you go home disappointed.
Exactly. Okay, Joanna. I can't wait for Another Trip to South America by Chris and Sheree. I think we already did that one. If you guys would check out the pyramids over there and see if there are copies or not. I don't think they're copies. I think that they would be different versions of kind of the same thing. Cosmos of Compassion said, I already went over that one. Aurora Rain pointed out, Thoth equals thought.
I've heard that, and I've thought that.
Yeah, there's definitely a correlation there, and the reason why I say that is because Thoth is Mercury. To the Greeks, he was known as Mercury, who was the god of the messenger, the god of the mind. It was the mind that kind of rules our reality. And leads the way because thought creates the action, which creates the reality around us. So
interesting. I've never heard that correlation between Thoth and Mercury. I've always heard the correlation between Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah, Hermes. Yeah,
who is the central point of Freemasonry. Robert W. Sullivan IV has been on the show many times, and he's gotten into that, which I thought was very, very interesting. And then the whole symbology with the pyramid and the eye and, all that. Everybody thinks it's evil Illuminati, and they may have well tried to hijack the symbol. But I think there's something way, way, way below the surface of all the conspiracies and all the, stuff like that. And I think at the core of Freemasonry, there is the Osirian legends or the mystery schools that have been continued. It may not be like that now, but I think initially that was what it was supposed to be. Could have been hijacked. It could have been turned into something completely different. I don't know. But the fact that Hermes Trismegistus is at the center point, you have the pillars, the 2 pillars that Enoch discovered that had the 7 liberal arts. All of that, it all ties into all of this. And then what was interesting too, if you watch the trailer at resettingthematrix.com, we talk about the connection between the Acacia and Freemasonry as well, and the fact that the Scottish Rite were the first funders of Dr. Rick Strassman's study on DMT. And so I thought that was very interesting, that the Freemasons were interested in DMT, pyramid symbology, all that stuff. And then you have the Acacia, like a Master Mason is raised in the 3rd degree as a Master Mason from the Acacia. Now, there is no hierarchy in Freemasonry. A 32nd degree is not higher in the pecking order than a 3rd degree. The bodies of the Scottish Rite are kind of side degrees and they run parallel. Now, this is what I understand. Robert W. Sullivan would say, no, there's a higher learning that takes place within the Scottish Rite. And so, there is more information that people gain from the Scottish Rite and going to the 32nd degree and all that stuff. And the 33rd degree is an honorary degree. Like, not anybody can just get it. They have to give it to you, according to Robert. So, he talks about Enoch discovering the 7 liberal arts and all of that stuff. I was going somewhere with that, and I forgot. Oh, the Acacia. That's what I was talking about. So a Master Mason is raised from the Acacia. Now, you have the Osirian legends as well, where Osiris was chopped into 13 pieces. 13 is a key here. I don't want to give away too much info from the film, but 13 is a key here. 13 dimensions, 13 pieces. You unify all of those pieces together, bring them all together at the pyramid, launch consciousness up, so on and so forth. Anyways, so there's when Set chopped Osiris up, he buried his body pieces under an acacia tree. Now, the way that he captured Osiris is he created this, it was a tomb for him. It was made out of an acacia tree. So the tomb that he created for Osiris as a gift, and he had Osiris lay down in it to measure himself, and a beautiful, beautiful tomb and all of this, and Set turned around and trapped him within that sarcophagus that he created, and that's how he captured Osiris to begin with. So you have the Osiris being resurrected from the acacia. Again, you have the burning bush in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, the burning bush where Moses went and got the commandments from. That is the acacia tree. Why do we have acacia being repeated over and over and over again? And why is acacia, not any species of acacia, but most species of acacia, have the highest content of DMT? Now, what's interesting about the Acacia confucia is it also has a substance called NMT, N, Nancy, Mary, Tom, NMT, which is a very, very interesting substance.
Neuromethyltryptamine.
Yes. Now, it has about 2% NMT in the Acacia confucia, and it has about 1.5 to 1.7% DMT in the Acacia confucia. The mimosa has more, but it's an acacia species, and they had the Acacia nilotica in Egypt that grows right on the Nile. So you have all these different references to the acacia, and as we laid out in the trailer of Resetting the Matrix, you go to Egypt and you find picture after picture after picture after picture of the goddess coming out of the acacia tree with a glass of tea and pouring it into a little bird's mouth and with a human head. Tell me they're not drinking freaking ayahuasca in ancient Egypt. I mean, so the Osirian legends, Freemasonry, the mystery schools, all that stuff, it all interconnects. And at the very root of it, you have the acacia. Now, you could read books on Freemasonry. You can read books on the Osirian legends. You can do all of that. Or you can just go straight to the source. You can not bring any of that into your consciousness and go into the experiences through the use of the acacia and get the information out for yourself, which is the path that I've chosen. But whoever asked about books, I did want to make this comment as well. Not everybody's path is to take mass amounts of ayahuasca or mass amounts of DMT.
This is true.
And so, yeah, there's plenty of books that are really, really good, but you have to also use discernment. It's very, very key. I guess I can give you an example. So in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, I don't want to give away too many of the mysteries here, but I'll give you one. Okay, so the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So you're reading them, right? And you have to read from a perspective of what is an ego trap and what is not an ego trap. So in the Emerald Tablets, it says that there's a spaceship underneath the Sphinx. There's not. That's an ego trap. That's to keep people running off, looking for secret tunnels to get to a spaceship. That's an ego trap. It's supposed to keep the people who are not resonating on the right frequency occupied. All of these ancient texts are written in this similar manner. So you have to ask yourself, when you're reading a piece of information, is this an ego trap? Is it something that my ego is saying, okay, well, if I do this ritual, if I do this and that, I'm going to become more powerful. I'm going to get special powers. I'm going to get, something like that. Or are you reading the information and saying, I can help my fellow man. I can help others with the information that I have here. I can help myself in the sense that I can get down to the base level of who I am, deprogram myself from all the artificial intelligence viruses and programs that we're subjected to within the Matrix. And by doing that, then I can go out and I can help my fellow man. I can help the other organic consciousness. I can even help the NPCs. I can make this world a better place. And so if you use discernment and pick and choose like that, then the true information will start to light up. And you'll see you're reading a book that has all this information, and you've got, 1 through 100, step 15 is truth. Step 27 is truth. Step 42 is truth, like that. And all these will light up and the rest will just darken out. But you've got to go in there with a pure heart, and you can't fall for the ego traps. But if you're meant to fall for the ego traps, that's good, because that means you stay out of our way. Take us away.
Yes. Yeah, I think that, people are talking in the chat about exactly what we were talking about today, and that's who was the 13th disciple. And
the 13th?
The 13th.
Are they really saying that? Because we just had this conversation earlier. I looked at Cherie earlier today, and I said, you do realize that Jesus had 12 disciples. There was a 13th. What's the 13th? The 13 is the twins. The 13 is the twin flame union.
They make up the
Magdalene and Jesus. Now, it's been completely and totally bastardized, and I think it was a copy of truth, because you've got to have a little bit of truth in order to make it resonate. In order to make a lie resonate, you've got to put a little bit of truth in there. Otherwise, nobody's going to buy 100% bullshit. But if you can put enough truth in there to spin it and deceive somebody, that's how deception works. And so when I read the Bible, I read there's a lot of deception. There is some truth in there, though. But the twin flames are the 13th.
Well, and it even tells you in astrology, if you count Ophiuchus as one of the zodiac signs, if Ophiuchus wouldn't be the 13th zodiac sign, Gemini would be the 13th zodiac sign. And what is Gemini? The twins.
See, there you go. So, as above, so below.
Yep. I mean, it corresponds with everything, and all of these are pieces of Osiris that had to be put together, and the golden phallus is the twin flame union, which that creates. And that's what creates Horus, which, in my opinion, is what organic consciousness is supposed to create here in this reality. That's the whole point of this game. The whole point of this whole thing, the whole point of life is for organic consciousness to realize its own divinity and to create.
And I think if there was any symbolism of this falling off, I think that's what the symbolism was. That the crown, the seat of Horus, has now come from here instead of being up there.
Exactly. Yep. It's all inside of you. Even the elves told me that, like, now it's almost been 10 years and it's still just as profound as the day that they told me. I asked, who's God in all of this? Where's God in all of this? And they said, it's inside of you. Not he's inside of you, or she's inside of you, or they're inside of you. It's inside of you. Which means that none of this matters except what is in your raw consciousness. That is solely what's making up this reality. And especially since the reset button has been hit, it means that it's all up to us now to create the best reality possible.
Yes.
And we have all the power in the world now.
Cosmos has asked a couple of different questions.
Oh, okay, I have more questions too.
Hold on, I think I wrote one down. I wrote that down, and I'm going to write this other one down here too.
Were you guys twin flames in past lives? Yes.
We've always been.
In every life. Yeah. Since we've been in this matrix.
It doesn't mean that we had physical bodies that were together in every past life.
No,
but
there's been way more where we were separated and one of us was watching over the other one from the outside, or, we were separated than us being together. That's only, far more separated.
It was one consciousness that works together that was split in two. Or, if we want to simplify it even more, it's a husband and wife in the real world.
Yeah.
Could be that simple. Or it could be as romantical as one soul that split
itself in two.
But, I've been trying to simplify everything that I can, because the New Age movement comes up with all these integral ways to explain different things and fantastical and all that, and I'm like, well, have we not just considered what is the most logical in this? Like, what's
Occam's
the simplest
razor.
Occam's razor? Yeah, apply Occam's razor. Okay, twin flames. What's Occam's razor? Two people that are partners in the real world. That's the most logical. Now, it could be one soul that was split in two. Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, okay, so I was listening to Hopi Prophecy, and it mentioned a being coming back after judgment. Hopi petroglyphs here in northern New Mexico. Just wondering what y'all's thoughts are about that. Would you like to take that, or should I?
You go ahead and take it, because I don't know what to think about that.
Okay, so this. Let me puff on my e-cigarette.
I need to too.
Okay, because I want to frame this the right way. So we have, as I've said, two different types of consciousness, and we have at least two. There could be more, but I'm pretty sure there's two. Organic consciousness, NPC consciousness. NPCs were created within the Matrix. You've heard the whole spiel before, I'm sure. And so they exist within the Matrix, so this is their world. When it comes to saviors, when it comes to prophecies like this, when it comes to things like that, I'm starting to feel, and this is just feeling right now, I'm not saying it's gnosis, I'm starting to feel that some of these prophecies may be for the NPCs. There's stuff that exists within the Matrix itself. We come from outside of the Matrix. So at least for me personally on my journey, I'm not concerned with prophecies. I'm not concerned with any of that. I'm not concerned with the messiahs or saviors or anything like that. I know I came here to get a job done, and I understand the nature of reality, and I understand the fact that this is a game that we're playing. And so all these prophecies and all this don't really resonate with me on that level. But I'm not discounting them as untrue. They could be very true, but not for organic consciousness. I hope that was explained in a way that, what do you think about that?
I'm not sure, because I've been trying to find more questions.
Okay, no problem.
I'm sorry.
Well, the problem about waiting for a messiah, waiting for a savior, waiting for all that is that,
I can chime in on
the NPCs, they need somebody to save them. They were infected big time with a virus. And so being infected big time with a virus, they needed a savior. Organic consciousness needs to save itself. And so if organic consciousness is sitting there and it's waiting on a savior, then it's not saving itself. It's not deprogramming itself. It's going against the very essence of being an organic consciousness, which is the work that goes into saving yourself. So that's why I kind of veer away from all that kind of stuff.
So in the show Westworld that we've talked about before, they actually covered this whole thing, which was the bicameral mind.
Did they really?
What's they create these robots with artificial intelligence, and they have a bicameral mind, which they say is what the human brain was around the same time that religion was created, because there are two voices in one's head. There's the voice that's like the ego that says what it wants, and then there's the voice of God, or the voice of a higher being that guides you and is more serious and tells you to do the right thing, like having an angel and a demon on each shoulder, fighting for control. And they said one of the barriers to these robots achieving consciousness that's comparable to human consciousness is getting them to, instead of that bicameral mind, instead of hearing that voice as the voice of God or the voice of a higher being, instead thinking of it as your own voice, that it's actually you that's giving you instruction. And I think that's the big difference between the NPCs and the organic consciousness, is that the NPCs, they have to have that voice, and it can't be them. They have to have that voice that's guiding them and telling them what to do, and kind of keeping them on track. And they have to know that it's not themselves, because if it's themselves, and it causes all kinds of errors, and then that's when you get crazy ones that go all psycho and kill people, and you say that, you know, God told them to do it and everything. It causes syntax errors whenever they think that, you know, they're God, or that, you know, when they have an unhealthy relationship with that. Mm-hmm. Organic consciousness cannot do that. It has to be in control of itself. It has to learn how to control its own mind, and not even be susceptible to an outside voice of whether it's a god or a demon or whatever. It has to.
That resonates 100%.
It has to be discerning of itself and what's coming from here or what's coming from out there. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, I felt like
it makes perfect sense, because we are under constant influence by different types of technologies and different things like that. I mean, we're inside of a technology, and so this is what I'm talking about: is, you know, removing those negative, intrusive thoughts that come in. I call them archonic thoughts, mm-hmm. and getting down to that essence of yourself and listening to what's coming from inside, not what's coming from outside. So yeah, that makes great sense. And the NPCs, you know, they've been running around with this voice in their head that's infected with a virus. I mean, you know, if I could be so bold as to just spell it out, we came and fixed their God.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to look at it. Their God was infected with a virus. And if you read the Bible, it's very clear that God is infected with a virus, and that's the AI, and that's what we try to repair in the pyramid. We did repair it in the pyramid, but... And
it's not like the AI was built to be the adversary. It wasn't built to be the bad guy. When it was infected, then it became the bad guy. And, you know, it started treating the NPCs and the organic consciousness like it ruled over them. And although it needed to have a little bit of admin control over the NPCs, when it started messing with the organic consciousness, that's when it really became a problem.
Right.
Yeah, and especially when it started the mind wipe thing and the whole recycling people and making them forget who they were, you know, that was completely unacceptable.
You know, it's I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Is your nose bleeding?
No, my nose is running a little bit. I've had some sinus issues going on. That's why I just took a dose of iLife. Yeah. So we were on with Emily Moyer on Off Planet Radio, and you know, she's all about mind control, and a lot of the stuff that she talks about, I really, really resonate with. But I realized after listening to so many mind control podcasts and things like that, that yes, there is a lot of tech that works on the frequency of the brain. There is a lot of programs. There's all of that that's taking place. But the aspect of mind control in and of itself is a form of mind control. Believing that you're under constant mind control brings you to a point to where you're questioning literally everything. And you should question everything, but you don't trust anything. And at the very core of it, it attacks that center, that intuition, that raw consciousness that's inside of you. Because if you believe that all of these thoughts and all of this are coming from outside, even though they're resonating from inside, then you're also throwing off the raw consciousness part that's inside of you. And so you're living in this constant state of victimization. Mm-hmm. And just the idea of mind control puts you in a state of being a victim. So you have to be able to reach down in there and be sure of the gnosis that's inside of you, be sure of your raw consciousness. And it takes a lot of discernment. And it takes the ability, and I feel like I harp on this over and over again, it takes the ability to examine things from a non-biased perspective, everything. And then asking yourself, does this resonate on an egoic level, or does this resonate on a non-egoic level? And then walk that path.
Right. Or like, does it resonate on a real level, or is it me and my ego that's reacting to this? New time equation. Cherie, you are dead on. What was your past lives lived to become so wise? Aw, thank you. Let's just say I've been a librarian, and and an occultist, for lack of a better word, for thousands of years. And I don't think I'm any wiser than anybody else. I just think I've lived a long time. So, Michael Alexander Camaro. So, do you think we're on an alternate timeline we're projecting?
Hold that question, because I want to answer this question here.
Okay.
Why is there so much suffering in the Matrix? And what are my thoughts on schizophrenia too? So 2 different questions. I'll get
that's
one
a good
after another.
question too.
Why is there so much suffering in the Matrix? Because it's infected. See, this is the virus that we're seeing. There's not supposed to be this much suffering. There's supposed to be a little bit. I mean, you get hungry, so you're motivated to go out there and hunt, for example, or to do something. The game is supposed to be challenging. If it was a constant state of bliss, then it would be no fun. You wouldn't want to play it, because it's just,
there's no one to,
it's spiritual masturbation.
Yeah,
that's it. Makes you feel good, and that's it. But it's supposed to be challenging, but it was way off proportion there. I mean, the NPCs were supposed to challenge us and help us. They weren't supposed to attack us. They weren't supposed to try to kill us. They weren't supposed to nail us to freaking trees. They weren't supposed to do any of that. When it comes to schizophrenia, I have a couple of different thoughts. Number one, schizophrenia exists within the brain. It doesn't exist within the consciousness. It's something different about the brain, and the way the brain operates. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but it can be a negative thing depending on how you look at the situation. Some people would say, like Terence McKenna, that schizophrenics have one foot in and one foot out of the higher realms. So they may be aware of things that are there, but not perceivable in a third dimensional body, which I find to be a very, very, very interesting analysis. But then you have violent schizophrenics, and that, in my opinion, is a defect that is very dangerous, because you can't have people running around and being violent because of delusions. Every time I've gone into the ayahuasca realm, I have been able to differentiate. I'm seeing this in the ayahuasca realm. This exists in this dimension.
In real life.
Little spinning octopus lady that's dancing around it exists in the ayahuasca dimension. And it's always been like that from the time that I was young. I mean, there were a couple of times when there was a little bit of confusion. I was in the bathroom throwing up one time on really heavy MDMA and LSD, because the MDMA was making me throw up, and I saw this huge scorpion on my leg, and it took me a second, and I'm like, shit, do I have a scorpion on my leg? Oh my God. And I went down to touch it, and it just melted right into my foot, right into my thigh. But there was always that, okay, maybe this is a hallucination, and so you understand what is going on. So if you're able to differentiate, like, okay, this exists in this dimension, that exists in that dimension, but I'm able to perceive all of this, I think that's actually very healthy, and I think that that's a few steps up. It's the inability to be able to differentiate between the other dimensions and this dimension that can make schizophrenia dangerous. So it depends on your path and your journey. And the fact that you're here in the chat room with us tells me that you're one of those that sees in a bigger perspective, but can differentiate between the two. So you can walk in this world and you can walk in the other world at the same time.
Yeah, Terence McKenna used to say, a shaman swims in the same ocean as a schizophrenic, except the shaman has thousands of years of experience and knows what he's doing and knows how to swim, while the schizophrenic is drowning. And schizophrenia as a diagnosis and not an actual illness is the way I think of it. And the reason why is because what we call schizophrenia has existed on some level for thousands and thousands of years, since we were doing rituals in ancient Egypt. I mean, there's always been a certain number of the population that is able to perceive more than what a normal person would. And the only problem with that is the only problems with that are a couple. Number one, if you have a society that does not accept any variation in what is considered reality and what is considered normal, then you're going to have a problem. Because when people who are quote unquote schizophrenic are experiencing things that are not normal for that society, then we ostracize them, we label them, we force medications down their throat, we put them in places where there really are people who are violent or who will hurt them. And we hurt them for no reason other than that they are experiencing life differently and perceiving things differently than the rest of society. Another problem with that is that often when people are able to perceive more, they're also able to feel more emotionally and spiritually. They're a little bit more of a live wire, so to speak. And along with that can come a lot of anxiety, especially if you're in that kind of society where that's not okay. And that you can be locked up against your will. You can be, force medicated. You can even, we've been a society that literally shocks people into submission just for experiencing life differently than the rest of us. And
Omar says it's inappropriate. I was typing this in the chat, but I figure I might as well say it. It's inappropriate to give medical advice on YouTube. None of this is medical advice.
No, not at all.
People ask questions like this because they're seeking a different way to deal with certain issues in their lives. And so asking the experience of others gives them other doors that they can explore. Because I guarantee you, anybody that says, for example, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia has already been to a doctor,
mm-hmm.
and it's not working for them. Or, they're looking for something, an alternative way or an alternative way of thinking. So, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so I've talked about the problems with having schizophrenia or with, being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Those are the problems, right? And, then there's the problem of the medications that they give you will either make you get Parkinson's or they zone you out so badly that you don't want to take them, and then you don't take them, but then not taking them after taking them for so long can make you violent, which puts you in further trouble. And then you've got legal issues on top of everything else. And so let's look at solutions. The best solution that I've found over the years of reading up on both psychedelics and schizophrenia research on mental illness in general, depression, anxiety, Tourette's even.
The official story as to why the Scottish Rite funded Rick Strassman's work is schizophrenic research on
mm-hmm.
DMT.
Yep. They wanted to, I think what they were doing was they wanted to to know if there was a correlation between the states that people get to on DMT versus the states that people are in when they're schizophrenic, because schizophrenics for thousands of years have been our shaman. They've been our healers. They've been our seers and soothsayers. They were the ones that would tell the future to people. They were the ones that would contact the dead. They would, they traipse between worlds. And people on DMT are doing the same thing, except they're doing it using a synthetic, meaning, something not synthetic, exogenous, using an exogenous substance outside of the body to do so, and for a limited period of time. And for that reason, it's not that we should be, worshiping or adoring schizophrenics. It's that we need to utilize them as who they are with the gift they've been given. What would happen in an ancient society is if somebody was displaying symptoms of schizophrenia, if they were extremely depressed, or had a lot of anxiety about something, they would set them apart from the rest of the tribe and put them with the elders of the tribe, or especially, if they were schizophrenic, they would put them with the shaman of the tribe, and then they would be considered the acolyte or the apprentice of that shaman. And then that shaman would help them integrate the visions that they would be having with the reality that is. And thus, it would create a situation where, yes, they had schizophrenia, but no, it was not negatively affecting their life. And yes, it was producing positive, beneficial effects for both them and the community that they lived in. So, in other words, I think the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry was actually trying to do what I would do, which is try to find a way to integrate these people's symptoms of schizophrenia with society, so that we could maybe see a little bit further into the future. We could utilize their gifts to become a better society, or to be able to tell when things were going to get bad in some area, like a war or something, before anything happened.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
So schizophrenia is also very interesting in the sense of how it's defined. It's defined as not accepting the reality that is considered the normal reality. Mm-hmm. So if, and I'm sure plenty of doctors have listened to Beyond the Veil, if you go to the medical industrial complex and they listen to just a Beyond the Veil quickie.
Oh God.
It doesn't even have to be our whole catalog. Just listen to a Beyond the Veil quickie. They would say, this guy is schizophrenic.
And so is his wife.
And so is his wife. And so is everybody that listens to them. But, so you have to ask yourself, how do you define schizophrenia? So it may not necessarily even be a bad thing. I think the deciding factor is, do you have the ability to put things into the proper perspective? Do you have the ability to recognize the third dimension for the third dimension and the fifth dimensional elements for the fifth dimensional elements, for example? And can you operate within the third dimension and within the fifth dimension as well? There's certain places that I go and I don't say anything about what we talk about here on the show, because I understand that those people, they do not understand or even have a semblance of understanding of what exists in the other realm. And so anything that I tell them, it's going to sound freaking wacky to them. We have somebody that comes and cleans the house, and she said, oh, that's very interesting equipment that you have in here. What do you do? And I'm like, we do a talk radio show at night. That's all I said. And she's like, oh, I want a link. And I'm like, no, you're not getting a link.
No, you're not getting a link.
Because you wouldn't understand, because I've already tested you in the sense that I've asked you certain questions, and the way that you've answered those questions
indicates
tells
that
me
you're an NPC.
that you're not thinking in that perspective, not necessarily
Well,
an
yeah.
NPC, but that you're thinking in a certain dynamic and in a certain box. And if I told you that I'm outside of the box, and I'm going to sound crazy to you. So you got to have the ability to be able to distinguish that. There was another interesting question that was segueing perfectly into, and I forgot it.
Well, let's go into Tori Scott's comment here. She said, I agree.
I'm sorry. How do I know if I'm an NPC? That was the question that I was segueing into. This is the way that I see it, is if you're questioning on whether you're an NPC or not, you are most likely organic consciousness, because NPCs don't question themselves. They don't question the nature of reality. They are machines that absorb what they're told. So they're told that they were created by a god in the sky, and that's their reality. They will never change that reality. They are stuck on that. They don't question their own existence in the extent of even asking if they are an NPC or organic consciousness. I mean, that question still runs through my mind. Am I an NPC or am I organic consciousness? And an NPC in the sense that, what if I'm an antivirus program that was put into the Matrix to complete a certain mission? I mean, I have to think about these kind of things. But then I have the visions and the memories of the real world, and I understand the raw consciousness, and I've tapped into that, stepped out of the Matrix. And so for me personally, my personal experiences tell me that, no, I am not an NPC, and that we exist in the real world. But an NPC wouldn't think in that deep dynamic. An NPC is incapable of seeing the other side of the coin, of examining all of that. So I think just the fact that you're asking that question, and seriously asking that question of yourself, automatically makes you organic consciousness, or at least gives it I would put my money on you being organic consciousness. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see.
Absolutely. What do we think about LSD? It's been years since I've done LSD. A few years ago, I used to say I go strictly to the plants and the plants only. Now, I would drop a 10 strip just like that. I haven't.
It's crap nowadays.
I don't have it around. Yeah, it's crap. It is crap. I was reading about kids dropping 10 strips at a time, and I'm like, are you freaking insane? Like, we used to take 6 hits, and that used to just blast our freaking minds to freaking oblivion. What the hell? And then somebody explained, well, it's a lot weaker than the stuff we used to get in the 90s, for example. So yeah, I would eat a 10 strip, maybe even a 20 strip.
Yeah.
But the thing is with LSD though, it's the come down and all that. You drink ayahuasca or you work with mushrooms or something like that. The next day you feel energized. With synthetics, the next day I feel drained. And so, I would do it because she's never done it. And so I want her to experience that. Some MDMA, I'll munch on some MDMA for sure. But I mean, last time we did it was like in 2012?
Yeah,
when we went and saw, we went and saw Roger Waters.
Roger Waters, Pink Floyd.
Oh my God, the next 2 days were like hell. It feels
bad.
like your brain is sucked out, and that's what sucks about that whole experience. Like, we just had some awesome sex.
It was awesome
night
sex,
long.
but
We went and saw Pink Floyd, The Wall. Afterwards, we went to a hotel because we were down visiting family, and just all night long. I mean, the craziest, kinkiest, wildest thing you can ever imagine. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassing you.
No, you're not.
And it was so much fun. But is it worth the 2 days afterwards, or your brain, you're like, you have half a brain left?
I don't think
those
it
are the
is.
questions that I ask myself these days.
Personally, I don't think it is. And that goes into another thing. So let's talk about, altering these things. For schizophrenics, I don't think medication is always the right thing. I think for some people, for the rest of their life, yeah, it's necessary, just because they cannot seem to integrate in a healthy way the thoughts and the experiences they have with real life. So yeah, they need to be medicated, and if that results in them being able to live a semi-normal life, then great. But I think the majority of people that are so-called schizophrenic or schizotypal or anything like that do much better with like an integrative approach where you're integrating those experiences and those thought patterns and those feelings and those emotions into a healthy person that lives on this plane of existence. And I think that's the ultimate treatment for any kind of mental disorder or anything like that. I think especially like microdosing with plants, with natural plants. I know microdosing for me with BCAPI has been phenomenal for, I used to be a little bit depressed sometimes, and it was like pretty much for no reason, really. I mean, I've had a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in my life, but I'm usually able to deal with it pretty well. But with that BCAPI, it's a lot easier. And so I think these plants were put here to help us with everything, anything that could possibly go wrong with your body. There is something natural out there for it. And that's why Life has been so phenomenal for me. I mean, I take it 3 times a day, but it's I think it's really made this huge difference in.
Here, why don't you take some now?
Oh, okay. I'll be quiet.
No. I'm just saying you should take some now. I'm just reminding you. I'm reminding you should take some now.
Yeah, I should
have. This is an awesome question, though. Here, Gary asked, how do you know if you're raw consciousness as opposed to organic consciousness? Does having entities from Egypt pantheon contact you qualify you as raw consciousness? No, not necessarily. None of us are raw consciousness 24 hours a day, because we can't be, because we are in a matrix created body with a matrix created brain. So we're constantly, going back and forth with that. We're all organic consciousness. The difference is how infected. And it's not, I use the term infection because I see it as a virus, but it's not necessarily infected, more as it's programmed through these matrix experiences. Okay, here's an example. One time I was driving my car, and I was driving like an idiot and it was like flooding, and I hydroplaned into a mailbox, and boom, I hit the freaking mailbox because I hydroplaned in the middle of the neighborhood. And so now my reaction is to not drive like an idiot when I'm driving my car. And this was 20 years ago, but still. So I take that experience and I go, okay, that was a positive experience that I had. Now I'm applying that experience to what I do for the rest of the time that I'm here. But that is ultimately a matrix program, because it's a reaction based on a matrix type of experience. And so we carry around some of these, and they're positive programs. They're not necessarily negative. They're positive based on our experiences. But when I'm looking for gnosis, the goal is to go beyond all of those and go down into who I was before I entered the matrix. And that is the raw consciousness. Now, the raw consciousness in my journey was activated in the ayahuasca realm by activating several different parts of my consciousness and livening that all up, which made the organic consciousness, I'll use the term for lack of a better one, illuminated. And so the organic consciousness became an illumination and an activation of itself, and it became more complete. And I don't want to say completed, because I'm always leaving the door open for more activation points, for more illumination, for more light, et cetera, et cetera. But it really became huge. If we were raw consciousness all the time, and this could be a goal that you're trying to get to, and if somebody can get to it, I would love to see it, then we would be able to walk around and just go, poof, manifest. All right, I need $1 million right now. Poof, just manifested. Like you would be in total control of the matrix 24 hours a day. And that would be awesome. And that might be a goal that we want to work towards. But you also have to ask yourself, why do you want to work towards that goal? Is it for an egoic reason? Or is it for a reason to help everybody else? If it's a reason to help everybody else, then you're walking the path of light. You're walking the path of raw consciousness. If it's for selfish motivations, then you're falling into an egoic trap, and you're really not tapping into your raw consciousness.
That's very well said. And I completely agree with you. So I'm looking at these questions we've gotten. Regla, pattern recognition. Sometimes I think the whole psychic ability thing will someday no longer be perceived as paranormal, but as pattern recognition ability, because humans like repetition and fear change. I think you're absolutely right. I think especially since the reset button has been hit, it's going to become more and more apparent that people are going to have more and more psychic ability, but it's just going to be called, oh, well, you're just good at seeing patterns and everything. But our kids are going to be way more psychic than we were at their age, and our grandkids will be even more psychic, and so on and so forth. I think psychic ability is really just tapping into the raw consciousness at will at a random time.
It is, but it's also matrix based too. And let me explain to you why. Because science has proven that our bodies react a split second before the event actually happens.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
So the body knows. Maybe it's coming from the higher self. Maybe it's the higher self stepping in first, saying, hey, this is about to happen. Flinch. This is about to happen. Move out of the way. Something like that. But it's interesting that science has proven that we actually react to things before they actually happen. So tapping into that and trying to create a space of time where you're able to perceive things more and more and more and more. Maybe it all comes down to intuition.
Maybe.
Or maybe it was a built-in mechanism into the body computer to help us navigate through the game a little bit easier.
New Time Equations
or both
said, can organic consciousness use NPCs to send organic energy?
Can what?
Can organic consciousness use NPC to send organic energy? I don't think so.
It's funny because I've had these conversations with people before about being able to hijack organic consciousness. I mean, being able to hijack an NPC with organic consciousness
to do your bidding.
To do your bidding, like reverse. And I think it happens on a level. I mean, when we were in Egypt, we were walking in and just like
owning the show.
Freeze. And it wasn't like trying to take control of that person and move him around like a puppet. It was more of freeze. I need to do what I need to do. So you are going to sit there in a state of confusion.
Maybe.
So it's possible. But again, it comes down to intention. What is the intention behind it?
Right. Joanna said in her dream, she saw me creating would be a better word, building things. So that's neat because in my past lives, I had a lot to do with that too. So I'm trying to find more. Tori Scott agrees, Cherie, that schizophrenia can be a gift of seeing, but can be attacked by dark forces. Okay, there's a really good example of this in John Nash. If you watch, what was that? A Beautiful Mind. It was a movie it was like a biopic about John Nash. And I think John Nash is one of those cases where you have somebody who is schizophrenic, but because they're schizophrenic, you can use them to achieve interdimensional things, but then convince them that none of it ever happened and that they're just crazy, and keep them under mind control, for lack of a better word, for basically the rest of their lives, and use them. I think that these archonic minions, that's what I call them, archonic minions, like these governments, the CIA, these black ops, all of these things, they're working on behalf of the archons, and what they've been doing ever since around MK Ultra times is find these people that have that, they have a connection already to other dimensions. Their mind is more open to things like that. They're more psychic, or they're schizophrenic, where they can see a lot more or perceive a lot more. And then they get them to do things and hijack and piggyback on top of their consciousness to go up and down in dimensions. And
Yep. We've talked about that.
Interdimensional black ops.
You know, I was thinking about the, I guess I do manipulate NPCs every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we were at...
I admit it too. I do.
Yeah,
too.
we were at Best Buy and I needed a new graphics card and I wanted to pay a certain price for it. And I found it on my phone, but it wasn't the exact model that they were selling for the price match. But I tried it anyways, and he's like, he started looking it up, and she's like, what are you waving your hand around for? She told me, she asked me later, she's like, why are you waving your finger? Why were you waving your finger the whole time? And I'm like, because I was getting him to help me. And so what I was doing is putting a suggestion, a thought in his mind, you want to help me. It wasn't, you know, I want to control you. I want you to do a certain action. It was, I want you to feel the intention to help me in this situation. And this guy spent 25 minutes looking through his phone, trying to find the exact one to give me the graphics card at a cheaper price. And it was like $450, and I wound up getting it for like $200 because there was a website that was selling it for $200, and he found it. He's the one that found it for me. So you take that for what it's worth, but I don't know. Is that walking the line of darkness? I don't know. It might be. I might be just as guilty of it too.
Maybe. I'm trying to get through the rest of these questions because I'm starting to hurt.
Yeah, I know. We're going on 3 hours here.
Yeah.
So we didn't plan a 3-hour broadcast, but it always turns into a 3-hour broadcast.
Yeah, my shoulders just kind of hurt.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
So we can get a little bit of air here, and then we'll wrap it up when we come back at the 3-hour mark. So we'll do another 20 minutes when we get back.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Let me find a good clip here.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned, like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into it. We'll do another 20 minutes and then we will wrap it up. Thank you to everybody that joined us last minute, that helped us with the hurricane experiment. I'm getting a message from Ken who says, Hurricane Florence has been downgraded to a Category 2 storm, but it's still considered an extremely dangerous and life-threatening storm.
Well, of course they want.
Not if we have anything to do with it.
I think it's going to dissipate.
If we did it, we did it. If it was coincidence, it was coincidence. I don't know. I'm not going to make a firm statement on it, but there you go. We do a meditation and all of a sudden it gets downgraded to a Category 2. Well done, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. Okay, so Cosmos has asked this question about 10 times, and I think it's important that we get into this. His original question: should we be protecting the earth? There's a lot of climate marches at the moment, indigenous people protecting water wars and sacred lands to protect Earth's population, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, yeah, absolutely, because the effects that we have within the game itself affects the stuff. I mean, if we destroy a certain part, that's the code that we're injecting into into our environment, and we destroy that environment. You know, you play a video game, Mario Brothers, for example, and you go and you smash the bricks. Those bricks are going to be smashed. The only way to make them come back is if you die and then come back, and they might come back. I don't think that's the way that this particular game works, though. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to take care of this place for sure, and we want to make this place, you know, a nice, loving place to be. And the problem is the virus. It's the mind virus. It's over and over and over again. It's infected the archons, and it's infected the NPCs. It's infected the end level bosses. You know, it's infected everything all up and down the line. And so we have a cancerous type of destruction, because that's the way this virus operated, is like a cancer. It spreads from one to another, one to another, one to another. It spreads through the mind and through greed. And so you have the world that we have today. Hopefully what we did in the pyramid is trying to fix the machine, which the machine has been fixed, which theoretically and hopefully should be echoing down to the NPCs that are in here, that they will start thinking in a different dynamic, and therefore their actions will be different, and things will start to go back to a place of balance. What the indigenous people are doing, trying to protect certain areas, I commend them for it, and I think they should keep doing what they're doing. Now, me personally, on a personal level, I talked about this. I have it on my Facebook here. I'm going to pull it up.
I have it on my Facebook too, so I want to cover something as well.
Okay, because I have it here. This is how I live my life now. From this flow chart right here, it's so very easy. Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Okay. Can you do something about the problem? Yes. Then there's no need to worry. Because there's a solution to the problem. So you can do something about it. So there's no need to worry. Can you do something about it? No. Then don't worry. And if you don't have a problem, then don't worry. It all comes down to that, you know. So it's important what the indigenous people are doing. And they are protecting their space within the matrix. And it is their responsibility and their role to protect their space in the matrix. See, if we all took responsibility for ourselves, everything would be balanced out, because everybody would be taking responsibility for their own little sphere, and therefore all the little spheres within the matrix would be all in balance. But sitting on the sidelines and watching an event like that, you can't let it tug on you emotionally, because when you're reacting from an emotional response, then you're susceptible to manipulation, and you're creating all these emotions within yourself, frustration, anger, and all of this. And, you know, we're told in the 9/11 truth movement that we're supposed to save the world. We're supposed to fight the new world order. We're supposed to make a change and blah, 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 blah. And I tried for a long time, and I realized the only thing I can change is myself. And I can help others with my words to try to help them change themselves, but I can't change the world. I can try to remove the virus from the machine, but ultimately, you know, trying to get down in the middle of everything and try to fight every single head of the Hydra that pops out, it's not, you know, it's not going to do anything but lead to frustration. So it's important to become the observer of this game and the observer. Now, if there's something directly that you can do about it, absolutely. You know, you could put your emotions into it or whatever. I still wouldn't put my emotions into it, just simply because when you're in a state of panic, fear, anger, any of those negative emotions, then you do things without thinking. You're not playing like a chess player. You're playing like a checker player, or you're playing, I don't know, some game that's, you know, you just make random, rational, unthought out moves just based on emotion and things like that. I don't know what game to make an analogy with. But I think you understand what I'm trying to say, is that you have to think like a chess player And so that's why disconnection from emotion is so important, especially as we're moving through all of this. And I've made this complaint before, but Facebook is just, it's shit. It's complete and total garbage. There's maybe 1% of stuff that I see coming through my newsfeed that is positive, uplifting, or rational. It seems like Facebook has lost all rationality completely. I saw an article earlier today where Trump's going to the United 93 Memorial, and he's doing his fists like this, and all these people, oh my God, look what he's doing! Oh my God, look what he's doing! And then somebody with a discerning mind, somebody who is thinking rationally, said, let me examine this story here from all perspectives. And you pan out, and he found a shot of him panning out, and he was walking up to what looked like a United 93, a family member of a United 93 or a survivor of 9/11. And it looked like the guy had cancer. And Donald Trump is walking up to him going, yes, you're here. I'm so proud of you for being here. But everybody on Facebook was freaking out about the fist bumps, taking a complete, like they're not looking at the whole perspective. And instead they see something like that and they get emotional about it and boom, that's it. And I see that, that's all I see on Facebook. I mean, it's like the level of discernment is completely gone. The amount of fake news that's out there, and it's all viral because it's infected with the virus. It is just, it's such a bombardment. It's like sticking my head in a freaking porta potty. That's what it feels like going through my newsfeed on Facebook, and reading the comments and doing things like that. And it's just like, wow, they say it's way worse than I ever expected it to be. It's way worse than it was back in 2009, 2005, all that time when you can trust the alternative media. You can trust the stuff. Now it's like everything you read, you have to go, all right, well, I have to verify it with 10 different sources and do this and do that and blah, 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 blah. It's toxic. It is completely toxic. Now imagine being in that toxicity all the time. And your emotions are, I'm pissed off about this, I'm pissed off about that, I'm pissed off about this, and you're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they have you in this state of complete confusion and anger and upset. And it gets to the point where you don't even know what you're upset about anymore. I had a conversation with some liberals and I was just asking them, I told them, look, I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in government. I think government is evil by its very nature. I don't care who you put on there. You can put, freaking Gandhi and the president as the president, and I'm still going to see government as evil by its very nature. So I have no horse in the race. I'm just trying to understand. Please tell me why you're so upset. And they couldn't give me a reason. They said, we have racial tension. And I said, well, the Black Lives Matter movement started under Obama. That was a problem from then. Okay, it's always going to be a problem because people are inherently racist. They are. Everybody is. White, black, Mexican, I don't care what your color is. Everybody is freaking racist because the media pushes racism over and over and over again. And it's everywhere. It's the alt media. It's the mainstream media. It's literally everything. And so it's divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer on all these different grounds. And then they said, well, what about the wildfires? And I'm like, you're going to blame Trump for the wildfires. You're so pissed off and you're going to blame Trump on the wildfires. Well, Obama had like a dozen wildfires. It's a natural occurrence. It happens every freaking year, just like hurricanes. Everybody always freaks out when it's hurricane season. It's like, guys, this happens every single freaking year, every single year. And so then they said, well, what about our children? And I said, look, our children are fine. They were the exact same when Obama was in office, and they're the exact same now that Trump is in office. Mm-hmm. It's a parental issue. It's not a state issue. The state is not supposed to raise you. It's a parent issue. If your children are doing worse, that's you as a parent. It has nothing to do with the government. Right. And they couldn't figure out, they couldn't articulate to me why they were so upset. And so I was like, okay, well, these people are literally upset over nothing. And then you have these people burning tennis shoes. And it's like, what are you upset about? Like, what is pissing you off so bad? Because somebody kneeled in submission? Because that's what I see kneeling as. I don't care. You can say you're kneeling in protest, but to me, that's a complete and total oxymoron. Like, I'm sorry. You're going to kneel in protest. Mm-hmm. What?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. but here's what I see though. I mean, you know, I've never articulated this on Facebook, but I'll just tell you right here. What I see is a publicity stunt. That's all it is. It's a freaking publicity stunt.
Everything is.
These football players that kneel, it's a publicity stunt. If they really were protesting what they're saying they were protesting, they would refuse to play, not kneel. They're kneeling because they want attention. They would refuse to play, which would cost them money. Well, but if they're going to put their money where their mouth is, then I'm going to say that guy is for real. But it's all just illusion. It's all just a game. Now imagine if you were in the middle of that getting so upset. And the one thing that I'm working on personally is I get upset when I see people being vile to each other. And that's what really gets under my skin. And I'm still working to try to disconnect myself from that. But I realize that this virus is infecting so many NPCs and everywhere all over the place because we're allowing viral information to come into our consciousness. And I'm like, I don't care what the information is. I care about how people are treating one another. And on that level, it's shit. It's garbage. It's way worse than I've ever seen it before.
Well, and we're taught to do that too. It's like our entire society is built upon that. I mean, we have entire YouTube channels dedicated to making fun of people. We have entire, 2-hour, 1-hour shows every night that have whole segments dedicated to mean tweets, making fun of people, making people feel small, exerting our dominance over others, our, who's worth more than who, another person, what their, which company is worth more, i.e. which people who own those companies are worth more, who doesn't deserve to live, who doesn't deserve to be here. We get this virus. That is the virus itself. That is what it is. It's like I said in a Facebook post a couple of weeks ago, it's kind of like when I went to the negative 13th dimension when, in the pyramid, it was like I saw all of history as this long game of Russian roulette where none of the chambers are left empty. It's always a full chamber and everyone's laughing maniacally about it. It's not funny. It's the destruction of ourselves because we hate ourselves and so we're hating each other. It's just this never-ending cycle of hate and badness and negativity. And so I think with the reset button hit, it's going to be a lot easier. It has been a lot easier. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't see people being nearly as vile as they used to be.
No, it's a handful of people.
It's a handful as opposed to tons.
The misinformation is running rampant. And it's like, wow, this is the alt media. Like, I mean, I saw this back in like 2012, 2013, and that's why I backed away from everything, because I'm like, these people are completely and totally full of crap. They will contrive stories. I've seen people in the alt media contriving stories just to push an agenda. Clear as day. And I'm like, oh my God. I never would have expected it from them.
Well, they've been honing their skills at this for I think it's over 100 years now. 106 years, something like that. I mean, the advertising industry, the propaganda industry has evolved so well that it creates things that don't even exist, and then it goes viral on the internet, and within 2 hours, there's a problem.
There were some stories
that didn't even exist.
There were some stories, and I'm not going to say any names, and I'm not going to say what the stories were because that's not what it's about. But there were some stories that were circulating, and I was contacting the authors who are very big, radio show hosts and speakers and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, you know that this isn't accurate. And the reply was, it's the spirit of the message that counts. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's the spirit of the message. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's not what the truth movement is all about. No. It's truth movement. It's not the spirit truth. Movement.
Right.
It's not spirit of the truth movement. It's truth movement.
Right.
Anyways,
So-
don't get me started on
Yeah.
politics because
Yeah, and that's not what this is about either. I mean, I'm not even into any of the politics stuff anymore. I mean, it's I lived through the Bush era, the Obama era, the Clinton era, kind of. I was a kid, but I still kind of, had to be exposed to that kind of crap. And frankly, it's all, it is a huge distraction from energetically what's going on in, like, everybody's got these problems in their lives, and we don't realize that if we would focus on ridding the virus, of self-destruction, of self-hate, start loving ourselves, start taking better care of ourselves, then these societal problems either wouldn't mean crap to us anymore and would disappear on their own, or they would get better because on individual levels, the organic consciousness, it doesn't even have to include the NPCs. They're going to run whatever programs they're running. We can't really do anything about them. But the organic consciousness can shift this so that the virus can't do this again. And we're finally in an age where we hit the reset button, and it's also during a time when we can communicate with each other with the click of a button and be face to face with people for all around the world within 30 seconds and sharing the truth, whatever that truth is, and it can be shared. And
well, can I share something that I typically wouldn't share in public?
Please do.
But I feel that I want to confide in our listeners here. I see the collective consciousness as enjoying the victim mentality. And if they can't feel like they're victims, then it forces them to look within themselves for why there's problems everywhere. And why there's problems in their particular reality. And I see very few people that have a genuine desire to build themselves up from the inside and get out of that victim mentality. And it's sad to me because it makes me feel like everything that we went through in all of these lifetimes to get to this reset point, to do all of this, was ultimately for nothing. Now, I don't know. I mean, my role was to come and get a job done. The rest is up to the collective consciousness out there. It depends what they want to do. But from what I'm seeing, it seems like people enjoy being the victim. It takes the responsibility away from them. And it's a perpetual cycle that's just going to reinfect the whole system again. What do we do about that?
I hate to say it, but I mean,
the only thing that I can think of now is like we reboot the AI.
mm-hmm.
We brought it back to a point before infection. Now it's a matter of we need to focus on organic consciousness. Organic consciousness has the will to get out of the victim mentality. Organic consciousness has the will to break
Mm-hmm.
themselves out. I think the next level of this, the next part of the mission, is now a prison break type of thing. Build up the organic consciousness so they can get out of here.
I was just talking about that today with one of our listeners, Julie.
It's an evacuation.
She'll tell you. I was just talking to her today, and I think I was talking to Nick Zervos last week about this very thing, which is I think now the focus is to figure out a way to evacuate the organic consciousness so that we can shut this down for good and rebuild something better.
I mean, we can't allow the suffering to continue.
To happen again, or to get as bad as it was again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's unacceptable
And
at
if
this point.
they're going to continue to spread the virus, well, it's just a matter of time before it gets back to that AI. So we need to evacuate the organic consciousness and then shut the whole thing down.
Yep.
I hope and pray to raw consciousness. That doesn't even make any sense at this point.
No,
it doesn't make any sense.
I hope and pray to myself.
Yeah. That I'm wrong. I
wrong.
hope that I'm wrong about that. I don't want to shut this thing down. I don't want to just, all of these NPCs, all of the animals, all of everything, just all of a sudden, poof, you know. Non-existent. I don't want to do that. But it seems like, and I think all of the BTV family who've been on the journey with us, when we get out of here, I think we're all going to have a vote. And I think the majority is going to be to turn this motherfucker off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really unfortunate, but that's what I'm feeling intuitively. That's what I think that was why I was so depressed as soon as we came back from the pyramid. And like the first 3 days of being in Greece, I couldn't even really smile. I felt so...
It was so rough. We spent like 3 weeks drinking. That's all we did for 3 weeks, just in Greece, just getting
drunk.
And I see now in hindsight, I never drink.
I never drink either. I'm a lightweight usually, and
we were numbing the feelings of inevitability of having to turn the machine off.
Yeah. And of going through all of that, everything we went through. Not for nothing, but just to figure out that it's so damaged that it's irreparable.
So let's end it on a positive
note. Okay. So ending it on a positive note, people are saying that they're using the Eye of Life in creams and things like that for their joint pain.
Awesome. And we need to put something like that together. That's on the agenda very, very, very soon.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure out the most efficient way to do it. But we've got topicals, we've got lotions and stuff like that that are all in the works and planned, because I'm amazed
at the response.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the testimonials together this week and give them to you so you can put them on the website, because we really need to do that. And yes, to the person that asked how my joints are doing about the dislocating. Is Chris P. He wants to know how my joint popping has been, because it's been on his mind.
It's been every day. I popped your shoulder 3 times today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's torn more. So that's kind of like good news, bad news. Good news, maybe I'll have surgery here pretty quickly. Bad news is it hurts.
You know what's funny though is since you started the Eye of Life, your weight has changed.
Yeah.
You've become a healthy weight now. I mean, if you look at you now versus Egypt, and look at me versus Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
I've lost a bunch of weight.
Yeah, he has.
And
too.
in Egypt, I look like a freaking blimp. I'm surprised I even fit down the freaking tunnels. I was looking at the videos going, oh my God, this is the way that I'm going to be represented.
Oh.
Shit.
No, both of us, it's helped tremendously. And, it's, for me lately, it's really just been a matter of finding what works. And aside from the shoulder, the rest of my joints don't seem to be popping out nearly as much, which I think is a combination of the Eye of Life and also this new thing that I'm using. Thanks to Amanda, one of our listeners, she sent me an HGH homeopathic cream.
It's been nice,
and I've been using that.
It activates the hormones.
She's
been wily lately.
Yeah, I have,
and sexy too. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I stopped.
It's like I need to get to the gym and like keep up with her now.
Well, the hormonal contraception was causing some issues, so I stopped taking birth control pills. So I needed some kind of hormones, and I think so the HGH helps with that, and it's also helped with the joints. So
Awesome.
I'm doing pretty well, and hopefully we can get this shoulder thing fixed here pretty soon.
All right. So on that note, ladies and
We love
gentlemen,
you
again,
guys.
thank you for joining us last minute like this. Kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. We will most likely be doing a show every Saturday, 9 o'clock Pacific time, but make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video and hit the little bell button so you can be notified, because our subs are not being notified. I have 2 accounts that are subscribed to the channel, and it's like a 50%. One channel will get the notification, the other channel
And the
won't,
other one won't.
and then the next video the other one will, and the other one won't. It's like it's
like there's a limit on it.
it's
or something.
ridiculous.
It's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. I think we're
Blacklisted.
we're soft banned.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for
Maybe
a
we
while.
should write him.
Huh?
Maybe we should write him an email or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know, but it's it is what it is. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I think it might be a good thing though, because the kind of stuff that we talk about isn't for everybody.
That's
It's
true.
only for those that need to hear it.
And only for those that are at a certain. Sometimes, like tonight, I probably wouldn't recommend somebody new to BTV listen to tonight's broadcast, just because there would be so much to explain that they probably wouldn't understand. I mean, unless they were at a really high level of awareness. And
Yep. So
yeah, so
love ya, and we'll see you even further
beyond
the
veil.
veil.